That was too early. It's fine. I really just had to put my headphones on and then I was hitting that button. So, I wasn't really ready to start at the second one. Anyway, so how's everyone doing? Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening whenever you're watching this. My name is Josh, and I'm not 100% ready for the beginning of this stream. On here, we talk about news, politics, and current events. This is a live show, so sometimes that might happen. So, it is Tuesday, November 29th, 2022. And it's another day in the world, folks. It's another day in the world. Feeling a bit better today, but also we'll kind of see how long that ends up lasting. Been feeling pretty wishy-washy. I think the adrenaline and need to be a little bit more lively for these shows kind of pushed me into having just slightly more energy than I did probably about 3 minutes ago. Either way, we got a lean show today. We're going to look briefly at the Senate passing the first hurdle of the Respect for Marriage Act. It passed in the Senate earlier today around 6, I think it was like 6:55 or so. 6:50 is when the latest article that I got up. So, probably around 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock or so, Eastern time. So I was about 2 hours ago or so. It passed through the Senate, 61-36. So that's certainly good. We're going to kind of look at one of the dissensions from, I believe it's Senator Langford. We're going to kind of hear him opine over religious liberty and other nonsense. Then we're going to have to talk briefly about Biden's betrayal to the working class. Here I thought that, Biden was some leftist vanguard of communism, but that doesn't really seem to have panned out. And then we're gonna get into we're gonna briefly touch on DeSantis. I saw a video ended up passing my feed, and that's kind of how I decide what to watch most of the time. And then probably the main event, the main part of the show, is going to be watching Kanye, Milo Yiannopoulos, and Nick Fuentes apparently showed up on Tim Pool's podcast, Timcast. So then we'll take a look at that and kind of hear what they have to say. I know it's probably a bit weird hearing me not say we're going to look at any of the Daily Wire boys, but we always look at them. So let's give them a break, all right? Let's give them a break. So let's get into it. All right. The Senate passes a bill to protect same-sex marriages. So the Respect for Marriage Act, a bill proposed, I'm not 100% sure who proposed it, but essentially it's going to enshrine same-sex and interracial marriage into law, as opposed to it being strictly based on Supreme Court precedent. So let's take a look. With bipartisan support and a 61-36 vote, the Senate passed the Respect for Marriage Act, which codifies same-sex marriage and interracial marriages. Lawmakers moved forward with the vote Tuesday after securing essential Republican support during a procedural vote a day earlier. It now heads back to the House, where it is expected to be passed quickly and sent to the president's desk to be signed into law. Obviously, the House is going to be different. We'll kind of see how the House works out, but the Democrats, until the House members elect get their seats at the beginning of next year, the Democrats hold the Senate and the House still, so they are moving quickly. Thank goodness for once they're moving quickly to get this through. So that is good. By passing the bill, the Senate is sending a message that every senator needs to hear. Chuck Schumer said ahead of the vote, no matter who you are or who you love, you too deserve dignity and equal treatment under the law. Makes sense? The bill, so the way the bill's written is like a bit funny, but also it's one of those things where like I think okay, here we go. It'll explain it. Here we go. The bill would require that all states recognize same-sex and interracial marriages performed in any other state. So essentially what this bill is doing is, I think the compromise is that while a state doesn't necessarily have to recognize or have to what's the word I'm looking for? Participate and like proceed with like a same-sex marriage or an interracial marriage, they must respect any that have happened in other states. So if you're if you're gay or your partner is not of the same race as you and you got married in Connecticut, you can now move down to Alabama for whatever god awful reason, and they're not allowed to basically negate or not recognize your marriage. It's not my favorite. It would be nice if that wasn't really in there. I guess, I assume people will just kind of leave their state briefly, get married, and then go right back to their home state, and it doesn't matter. So it effectively means like any state that wants to have anti-gay marriage legislation will be undermined by its closest neighbors and really any other state. Somebody goes on vacation, they get married, those red states are shit out of luck. So, not my favorite compromise, but hey, if it's what got it past the hurdle, then, I'll take it. That's, you take the victories you can get. It would not require that states individually allow the marriages to be performed. The measure also would recognize these marriages for consideration of federal benefits, such as Medicare and Social Security. Well, that's nice. That's really nice. Amendments to the original House passed bill, led by GOP negotiators Susan Collins, Tom Tillis, and Rob Portman, make sure that nonprofit religious organizations are not required to help perform a same-sex marriage. So yeah, that was also, I think, a big ask on their part, where obviously the state can't force a church to marry two people of the same sex. Again, not my favorite it's not my favorite thing that had to be a compromise, but again, you take the wins you can get, and at the end of the day, if that's the line that we're going to draw as a society, I think that's perfectly fair. If you have your church and your church doesn't believe in that stuff, we're not going to force you to participate or, facilitate that marriage. But once it is, you don't get to undermine that with any of your, strongly held religious beliefs or whatever. Earlier this month, 12 Republicans joined 50 Democrats, which is actually kind of funny because I saw it was like 48. I think 48 Democrats. So there were two. I think one didn't vote and one voted against. I believe it was. Do I remember off the top of my head? I think it was Tammy Baldwin. I could be wrong about that though. Earlier this month, in a vote that ended debate on the measure, avoiding a filibuster and permitting the legislation to advance toward a final vote in the chamber. Yeah, so the one before, I think it ended up with 63 votes for, so they lost 2 votes in both for and against, but they could have, it's one of those things where you can kind of jockey for those 2 votes. It quickly became clear that there might be a critical mass of Senate Republicans willing to support the legislation, and party leaders held off scheduling a final vote to give negotiators time to find a deal, which they reached this week. The measure was born out of the House this summer following the Supreme Court's decision on Dobbs v. Jackson, which held that access to abortion was not a constitutional right. Marriage rights advocates and Democrats expressed concern that the reversal could call other decisions regarding civil liberties into question, including marriage equality. In his concurring opinion of the Dobbs case, Justice Clarence Thomas made a point to say that the Lambark 2015 case that legalized same-sex marriage, Obergefell v. Hodges, rests on the same legal principle that underscored Roe. So understand that, like, the way that this has kind of been framed, I think, in some media circles, is very much that, Democrats just randomly got really concerned about same-sex marriage and interracial marriage, which is not true. Clarence Thomas, conservative justice on the Supreme Court, already called into question any other decisions that were based on the 14th Amendment's right to privacy. So because Roe was essentially decided under the 14th Amendment's right to privacy, so because there were other decisions that kind of what's the word I'm looking for, leaned on that reading of the Constitution as well, with the undermining of Roe v. Wade, essentially Clarence Thomas said, well, we also could be looking at this also, because if the bedrock begins to crack and things begin to fall from underneath it, then maybe decisions that were also based on the same principle might be at risk of being overturned. So essentially, this is Congress, and this is Congress basically stepping in and going, okay, we need to write this in clearly, because there's quite a few rights that Americans have that aren't written in the law and are really just based on Supreme Court precedent and Supreme Court rulings, which at any point, as we saw with Roe v. Wade, can be overturned. You get different justices in there, and they could, end up overturning it because they just have different opinions, man. And that's that's kind of all it takes. While no case challenging the right to marry has yet made it to the Supreme Court, I just thought of something. Give me a second. I just thought of something. I think we need something celebratory. That's what we need right now. Let me 1 second. Oh, what am I thinking? Yeah, give me this one. Oh, I know. Hopefully this won't get oh, here we okay. Hopefully. No. Oh man, I'm trying to think. Oh wait, can I find a I know. Hopefully. Okay, so I'm hoping that this doesn't become what's it called? Hopefully this doesn't get striked. That's what I'm hoping. I'm really hoping that this doesn't get recognized by Twitch or by YouTube. This is vaporwave. This isn't. I was looking for lo-fi. And they gave me vaporwave. Slowed and reverb. That's not what I want. I don't want slow and reverb. I want like fun. Ooh, wait. Okay. Hit me with it. Yes, this will do. This will do. I think this will do. Ooh, young man. Okay, we're gonna listen to this. We're gonna listen to this while we read this. Let me turn this down just slightly. So, okay, there we go. Let's see. While no case challenging the right to marry has yet made it to the Supreme Court, advocates feared Thomas was setting the stage for Obergefell's reversal. The legislative victory comes as a surprise. House Democrats brought up the legislation ahead of the election with little to no expectation that it would become law so quickly, but rather to put Republicans on the record on a social issue that has the vast support of American society. A notable number of House Republicans joined with Democrats to pass the bill, ultimately forcing the Senate to act on legislation that Democratic leaders did not initially have on their fall agenda. The bill now heads to President Biden, who, as vice president, publicly broke with then President Barack Obama to voice support. Yeah. Okay, so yeah. So this still does need to pass, I think, the House one more time. But, yeah, that's the... ultimately... we most likely are getting our gay marriage and interracial marriage legalized. So, success, ladies and gentlemen. Also, yeah, that was a fun little lo-fi version of YMCA. I enjoyed that. But keeping with that topic, I kind of want to look at one of the dissenting senators in the House, Representative James Lankford, somebody who I honestly I've never seen this guy before. I've never seen this guy before, so I'm not sure what his deal is, but let's kind of hear what he has to say. So, from what I understand, his issue is with the religious liberty half of this, which, again, that was kind of the big compromise to get Republicans on board. But let's see. Oh, God, this is 15 minutes. Okay, we're going to do this like one. We'll see. We'll start at 1.25. If he talks really, really slow, we'll bump it up to 1.5. How about that?
29 years ago today.
Hey, I'm 30 now.
Today,
Never mind.
President Bill Clinton signed into law a bill sponsored by then Representative Chuck Schumer,
Mm-hmm.
aided in the defense and protection of one of the most fundamental freedoms that we have in our nation. That freedom, religious freedom. The bill.
What? Wait, we only gained religion. Okay, sorry. I thought we had religious freedom like since the beginning, but okay. I guess we didn't.
It's called the Religious Freedom
Not
Restoration.
until 92, 91.
Passed by Congress
Uh-huh.
today, 29 years ago, found that government should not substantially burden religious exercise without a compelling justification. It's truly
Okay.
a landmark piece of legislation.
Okay, we're doing this argument.
Add further protections to individuals that have religious liberty differences, and we have wide variations of religious expressions in the United States. It's part of what makes us such a unique nation, is that we guard the rights of every individual to not have to believe the same as the government believes, or not even have to believe the same as your
Well, that's not 100% true, my friend. You do kind of have to hold the belief that murder is bad. The government believes murder not good. You, as a citizen of this country, also need to kind of agree murder is not good. So, kind of, but not really.
next door neighbor believes. But to have the right to freely have a faith of your choosing, change your faith at any point if you choose to, or to have no faith at all and be respected as an American.
Woo.
Quite frankly, to be protected as an American. This landmark piece of legislation, the Religious Freedom Restoration Act, has not been altered in the 29 years since it's been passed.
Facts.
The purpose of the act was to restore a compelling interest test, to be able to make sure that if government acted in any way to affect anyone's religious liberty, there had to be a compelling reason for that from the government. To guarantee its application in all cases where free exercise of religion is substantially burdened, and provide a claim or defense for those.
So I already feel like kind of, okay, we are going to bump this up to like 1.5. I already feel like this dude's like trying to make some kind of argument that like same-sex marriage is somehow burdensome, or a burden on like those of the, I'm just going to make a snap judgment here and assuming he's talking about Christian or evangelical faith. Even though, again, the main what's the word? The main compromise is leaving churches and leaving religious institutions out of the business of marriage making because, well, you know, that's kind of a government role. There's tax implications into that as well. So, yeah, this is not really a burden on Christians or whatever, unless it's like, hey, your marriage shouldn't exist. It's burdensome to my eyes. I don't.
Those whose religious exercise is substantially burdened by government. Religious Freedom Restoration Act doesn't pick winners and losers. It provides a balancing test. The government may burden someone's religious exercise only if the burden is in furtherance of a compelling government interest and is the least restricted means of furthering that compelling government interest.
Makes sense.
Years ago today.
Woo! I say that
Today,
was that 92?
my colleagues moved forward on a bill that instead of promoting equality for all people of all opinions, it specifically highlights areas of religious faith differences and says their opinions won't count this time. It deals with this issue of marriage. It's been a controversial issue in America, but was quite frankly, since 2015 in the Obergefell decision in the Supreme Court, there have been no cases moved in the country to deny same-sex marriage to any individual in any state across the nation.
Right, but that's not the point. Like when it comes to these guys, their argument is always, hey, there hasn't really been a problem about it. It's only like again, this is obfuscating the fact that like your actual right to marry somebody of the same sex or somebody of a different race isn't actually written in the law. Like it's only given to you by a Supreme Court that at any point can decide, actually I don't think that's the case anymore. Holy smokes. Can you guys hear that? Scared the absolute shit out of me. Apparently there's an Amber Alert. Okay. Calm down. Okay. Someone should catch that person. Anyway, sorry about that. Yeah, so like again, there's a couple kind of lies being lies being told here. The first one is that, oh well, there's really no problem. There's never been a case of somebody denying denying somebody a marriage, the ability to get married, which is not really 100% true. The actual inciting case was about someone's religious liberty. I believe it was, I don't remember her name, but there was basically a government worker who was, denying gay couples their marriage licenses because they claimed their religious freedom. So no, that's not true. We have a case where that happened, and as even though it hasn't happened again, it's not based on law. It's based on Supreme Court handing down their decision and deciding for everybody else. So no, this whole I don't see why we needed to do this. Well, why do you have to do that? Like it's the case where well, why do you have to enshrine it into law? It's like, well, because we can. This is America. Some people would like it enshrined in the law. Why? You would have to. Your opposition would have to be actually material. What harm is it bringing to people? Which the only thing this guy clearly is going to have is kind of his religious fee-fees, which that's not really how freedom of religion works. Again, I think the compromise that they met was pretty fair. Again, even though it's not, it's not my favorite thing that we had to have a compromise like that, but I mean, that's kind of how it works.
Today, my colleagues move forward on a bill to open up debate without amendment, may I add,
Woo.
on a bill that would certainly affect the religious liberty of countless people across the country.
I'm not crazy.
It's not just my opinion.
Oh, this is okay. This okay. So this is before the vote actually passed. I thought this was from today, but this is from the other week when it passed the first time.
Have already been
which he almost certainly did not vote to pass it this time. So hardly matters.
Out on this issue. Just in the last 24 hours, the Alliance Defending Freedom, the American Association of Christian Schools, Catholic Vote, the Center for Urban Renewal in Education, the
listen to all these religious institutions that have a problem with gay marriage.
Ethics and Religious Liberty Commission, the Faith and Freedom Coalition, the Family Research Council, the Family Policy Alliance.
So also just kind of keep in mind all the organizations he's naming. For every one of those, there is another one that is in favor of it. This is really, really split. At least the Christian portion of the electorate in this country. Because, which even then, I feel like a 50-50 split is probably not true. Most people who are Christians or Catholics that I've ever met, and I would argue most people who identify as at least Christian, aren't really that bothered by gay marriage. It's mostly very, very fundamentalist believers like this guy that have a serious problem with this.
Foundation, the Liberty Council, Lifeline Children's Services, the National Religious Broadcasters, Religious
That's nice.
Freedom Institute,
Cool.
the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops,
Cool.
and the Ethics and Public Policy
Catholic bishops. I don't know about that. I don't know if that's the group I want.
On the floor of the Senate
I don't know if I really want their opinion on this sort of thing.
Religious institutions are rising up, reading the text of this bill, rather than just listening to the debate of this bill, and saying, there's a problem here.
The problem is it compromises too much.
What could this
I want less compromise.
I would say first and foremost, we don't want anyone to be discriminated against in America.
Unless they're gay.
To be discriminated against.
And they want to be married.
All individuals should be honored. All individuals should be able to live their lives in freedom in America. But practically, this bill puts faith-based child welfare organizations who are operating in accordance with their sincerely held religious beliefs, maybe to place children in loving families, it puts them in jeopardy.
So what he's referring to there is religious institutions not allowing LGBT families to adopt kids. They will not let children enter into loving homes if they're gay because their religious beliefs. That kid can stay in an orphanage or in a foster home or whatever. They would prefer that. Some of these organizations prefer that over them going to a household that is probably a perfectly functioning household, but just so happens to be gay. Like that. It's fucking demonic.
Also, my colleagues,
and the idea that you think you have freedom over that, like the problem I also have with that is if you nowhere does that child, like any kid in an orphanage does not give a flying fuck about the sexual proclivities of their adoptive parents. Like, they would like to go to a home where they'll be loved and where they'll be taken care of. They don't give a shit about any of this religious dogma bullshit.
May I remind you, the Supreme Court has already handed down a decision in the Fulton, and would remind them.
Supreme Court doesn't write laws; they interpret.
Has been shut out of the child welfare system in Illinois, in D.C., in California, in Massachusetts, already.
Yep.
And then this bill's coming.
Because those organizations did what I just described. That's why. Like, I'm sorry, if you're not actually gonna adopt out kids to homes because you have, again, like some opinion about gay marriage, then sorry, we can't entrust you as a society to distribute children to like deserving homes because you have a weird like religious test, basically.
Let me tell you some of the problems with the bill, because I've had individuals tell me about what they say is in the bill, and then I actually pull the text of the bill out and show it to them and say, show me where that is in the bill, and their response to me typically is, well, that's the intent of the bill. Well, we don't deal with intent here in Congress. We deal with legislation and text. The words matter.
It's called interpreting, really.
And the words in this do not provide the level of religious liberty protections, as many in this floor that have come to debate this say that it's actually in this bill. Let me give you just some simple examples of this. This bill gives a private right of action for both, well, I should say, gives protections from the Attorney General to be able to file charges against an individual that shows discrimination, or
Sounds
a private
good.
right of action for an individual to be able to sue another individual or entity in this, unless the discrimination is for religious liberty. They are peculiarly left out. If there's discrimination against someone's religious liberty issues and their personal beliefs or their entity's beliefs, they don't get this same private right of action.
Wait, so that's you don't need to address that in that law because that law already exists. That would be discrimination based on religion, dumbass. Like that's already a thing. We already have that. You can't discriminate against people based on their religion. That's already like a broad law.
The private right of action.
I believe it's actually in the first. It's part of the First Amendment.
People that have religious objections, those religious individuals, if they are discriminated against, are on their own. They get no protections in this bill. The bill itself, I've heard individuals say, well, it has a section in it that is literally titled "No Impact on Religious Liberty and Conscience." That's the big, nice title of that section, Section 6 of the bill. So let me read the Section 6 of this bill to you. The first part of it, Section A, says nothing in this act or any amendment made by this act shall be construed to diminish or abrogate a religious liberty or conscience protection otherwise available to an individual or organization.
Can I just
under the Constitution of the United States
the
or federal
Wikipedia
law.
article?
That has got to be the biggest no-duh statement out there. This piece of legislation doesn't over.
I want to take a look really quickly. Although I can't. Oh my God! What the fuck? No. Give me the link I just had. Give me the link I just had. Yeah. Prohibits government from establishing a religion. Yeah, that's the whole point of that. Is that you can't discriminate based on somebody's religion because then you would have to be actively advocating for another one, or the adherence to no religion. Like that's already built into the First Amendment. You have a freedom of religion.
Overturn the Constitution is what it says.
The fuck?
That is an unnecessary statement on it. Of course, the Constitution stands above it. The second part of this, in Part B, says basically a rabbi, an imam, or a pastor is not compelled.
Feels like that should be a joke.
A marriage ceremony,
like the beginning of a joke.
Opposed to. That's the whole religious liberty section of it.
Yep.
The whole section.
Sounds
First,
about.
It says it doesn't overturn the Constitution, and second, it says pastors, imams, rabbis don't have to perform religious weddings that they're personally religiously opposed to.
There you go.
That doesn't help.
Okay.
Really? There's a qualifying feature in the middle of all this, in that section, in Section 6, which limits the individuals that would even get any kind of protections on this by saying whose principal purpose is the study, practice, or advancement of religion. Meaning, an individual would first have to prove that your principal purpose is to study, practice, or advance religion before you even got those exceptions. Why is that important? Well, I asked some of the sponsors of this bill why that particular piece of text in there, and their explanation was, well, because we didn't want to include for protections on religious liberty private individuals in their personal religious expression or private businesses that maybe the owners of that business have a personal religious belief in how they carry out their business, but they would not have religious protections because they're not principally a religious organization. So
makes sense.
Do not.
So essentially what he's talking about is, hey, if I'm like a business, I should be able to not want to serve the gays and making them cakes. This is kind of like the cake thing, where it's like, oh, well, I bake cakes for a living. I'm a private institution, but I don't bake cakes for the gays because I have a sincerely held religious belief, which does not work, and I'll explain to you why. That doesn't work in the way that we conceive businesses in individuals. So when you own a business, that business, whether even if you own it, you know, like anything else, you own a business, that is not you. You as a private individual are allowed to have whatever religious beliefs that you would like. But the reason why that doesn't apply to businesses is because businesses are licensed by the US government, by the state that you live in, and you pay taxes to the federal government and use the infrastructure. As a business, as an entity of enterprise, of you cannot participate in discrimination based on sexual orientation, race, anything like that. You act like that's not something you can do as a business. It's also why he's kind of playing a bit of games, because he's arguing like, oh, well, if I own my business, but I don't want to serve this person. Guess what, buddy? Your business has to serve them. You personally don't. If there's one person, if it's you and one employee, you're a cake baking organization, gay couple comes in, says, we want to buy a cake from you. You say, we do not serve, we don't serve the gay community. Guess what? The government's going to come to you and be like, hey, guess what? You don't have to make it. You know, even if you own the business, but guess what? Your employee, your entity must participate in the system as if they were like anybody else. And that's that's you don't get a license from the government to like exist and to have opinions. That's not how private individuals versus private institutions works. That's not at all. Those two things are immensely separate. There's a reason why you file your personal taxes if you own a business, and then your like company's taxes. They're different. They're different forms of taxes. It's different form of conceptualization. You would think somebody who probably has interesting opinion, who at the very least conceptually understands conception, would get that those two things are not the same. You would think, but you know.
Because we didn't want to include, for protections on religious liberty, private individuals in their personal religious expression, or private businesses that maybe the owners of that business have a personal religious belief in how they carry out their business, but they would not have religious protections because they're not principally a religious organization. So they
right. So again, if you're a church, if you are a church or if you're a church, then you get those exemptions. As long as you are in a building of practicing your religion, then you're fine, because your establishment is there to practice, to study your religion. It's not there to sell cakes, do whatever, and participate in the U.S. economy. Participation in the U.S. economy is based on the shared value that you must serve everybody. We're not going to have Jim Crow, but for the gays. That's not how this is going to work.
Defense. They don't get a private right of action to defend themselves. They just have to cave to the religious beliefs of this law.
Actually, the unreligious
this
beliefs.
Congress said we were not going to impose beliefs onto people. Today, this Congress said, if you're a faith-based individual and you have a difference of conscience about marriage, too bad.
Too bad. So sad.
You have to prove you're a principally religious organization to have an exception.
Yep.
An individual.
Yeah, exactly. You need to prove that there's more of a reason besides, I'm Christian, so I don't have to serve you. No, sorry. Your institution needs to prove that you're you can't just, the bar can't be that low, because then trust me, we would live in a world and these people like would hate it. But like all that would then happen is everyone would just begin to make up like fake religions that like skew exactly towards and like exactly for and against the groups they like and dislike respectively. And then they'd be like, what? I get to be racist, or I get to be anti this or anti that. Oh, I don't serve Christians. It has nothing. It's not because of my personal beliefs. It's a sincerely held religious belief. Like, no, we can't have this. We can't have this. This is not how a functioning society works.
Doesn't count. A private business is specifically excluded. In Section 7 of this bill, I've had several of the sponsors that have told me, Section 7 covers everything else. Make sure it protects nonprofits. Make sure it protects all of your tax-exempt status, your grants. It's all in there. Until you read the text. No, those words are in there, But there's two big qualifiers that are also in that section. The first of the qualifiers begins with nothing in this act shall be construed to deny or alter the benefits. Meaning, if it's in something else, that's not protected. It has to be something specifically in this act. The second thing is the very end of this. It gives a long section on this. Nothing in this act or any amendment made by this act shall be construed to deny or alter the benefit or status. It goes on to explain some of these things, and then it ends with this: provided such benefit, status, or right does not arise from a marriage. That's the qualifier. Provided such benefit, status, or right does not arise from a marriage.
Sounds great.
Now, I've handed this around and asked legal counsels, explain to me what that means. And the first response
I would love to actually hear that.
that I get is, well, that's a clear protection for individuals that are married, that if there's
Right.
any right given to any other married couple, they get the same right.
Makes
That
sense.
Makes total sense.
Makes
What
sense.
about for entities? Because the word entity is in this list.
Sure.
And that's where it gets fuzzy.
Uh-huh.
Because it has this qualifier, provided such benefit, status, or right does not arise from a marriage.
Right.
We don't know how that's going to be interpreted for entities.
Uh-huh.
So it's left for the courts to decide in the days ahead how that's going to be interpreted.
I thought, wait, whoa. I thought you were okay with the court deciding when gay marriage was already, like, fine. Like, this is the thing that kind of annoys me a little bit about this, is this dude will complain. At the beginning, if you paid attention, at the beginning, he's complaining that, oh, hey, well, the court's already kind of, like, made this distinction, and they kind of already cleared this up. But then he introduces this, and he's like, well, nope. We can't have any ambiguity whatsoever. Dude, the court's making that decision was good enough for you before. Why is it not good enough for you now? Interesting.
Yes. All these things have been brought up. We've had this text now for about 36 hours. It literally just got dropped on us. So for about 36 hours,
Boom,
we've been going
roasted.
through it. It's not long. It's 3 pages.
Wow.
Asking questions, how does it work? What happens with it? And several individuals have said, hey, this is a real problem for religious liberty. We should fix this.
Some people,
Others have said, yes,
obviously a minority.
It's actually clear. Except, now that the debate has started, amendments have been shut out. There are no amendments.
Makes
All of
sense.
these gaps that I talk about for individuals, for small businesses, for individuals of conscience, for the right to be able to protect yourself if you're facing...
Again, he's like individuals, small businesses, they're all different. Like individual, you have the individual right to be as hateful as you want, as long as you're not committing hate crimes. That's very, very simple. You're allowed to believe what you want. You can't just discriminate in terms of people participating in the economy.
Religious discrimination on this, for the limiting portions of in this act, or from explaining not arising from a marriage, what that may mean, the issue of principal purpose and not having to prove your principal purpose in a court of law is a religious issue. Everyone seems to nod their head and say, oh yeah, those are problems.
I'm not sure what the whole, like, oh, I have to prove that I'm religious. That shouldn't be super hard. I mean, when it comes down to it, you have to prove. There are people who have to prove. You have to like pay for a marriage license. You have to prove that you're married. So, like, why? Like, I have to like these people are so offended. They're like, oh, I have to prove that I'm like a Christian. Trust me, man. Trust me. It's gonna be really fucking easy for you. You can bring it. That the bar is gonna be rather low.
Multiple members have brought amendments and said, let's fix it. And yet they're being told over and over again, no amendments.
Nah.
We're not going to fix it.
Take it up to the Supreme Court.
These are not mistakes in the drafting.
Damn right they're not.
This was purposeful. That's what that tells me. Listen.
I'm
The
listening.
rights of every individual should be honored. This is not choosing to be able to protect the rights of every individual. This is saying some people are more equal than others. That's a problem.
Who's more equal? They always say this, and like the stuff he's explaining, I can't help but ask, like, who's more equal? It sounds like we're rewarding the same rights that we give married couples as the ones we give to gay couples. The only difference is they had to put a whole bunch of extra fucking writing in because of religious liberty dweebs who are concerned about their right to not live with gay people that they don't think should exist. Like, at the end of the day, like, whether you like it or not, like, I'm sorry, you have your churches, you can go and be anti-gay in your churches, but as a government, as a governmental body, as the people who collect taxes, as all the rest of the stuff that the government does, no, we can't have any of this. We can't have this favoritism towards certain people's beliefs. You just can't have it. And they'll make the argument that the belief that gay marriage of equal protection under the law is forcing a belief on them, when it's not. It's simply not. Nobody is asking you to believe that gay couples or any of those are equal. They're forcing you to treat them as your equal. And that's the part that they don't like. This guy and people like him would not like to treat gay and LGBT, other LGBT relationships with the same amount of respect as he does his own and other relationships that he sees similarities to. He doesn't want to show them that respect. And the thing that gets under his skin is that this law is going to force him to treat people with respect. You don't got to believe it, but you're gonna seethe behind that grin while you watch other people live their lives. Sorry, it's called living in a society. If you would like to live under a theocratic society that's more preferable toward your personal religion, there are multiple countries I'm sure you can go to and live under their religious texts. But we live in America, and we don't have an established religion here. I'm really sorry. My religious beliefs is not an argument in the United States for having of having unequal rights between people. It's just not. But all right. With all that said, I would encourage anybody stopping in or swinging by, if you have the ability, if you're able to, throw me a follow. I'd really appreciate it. I do this every night at 7:30 on every night. I do this at 7:30 on Mondays, Tuesdays, and Thursdays every week, where we go over all sorts of fun stuff like this. So if you can spare it, if you can, I'd appreciate a follow. Right now, I already have a full-time job that, although I like and I think is fine, working in the service industry can be a bit of a soul drain sometimes. So help me get out of that industry and into this one by hitting that follow button, and also going over to the linked YouTube account and hitting subscribe on that too, because you should totally do that as well. But for now, we're gonna take a very brief break. I'm gonna drink some water. We're gonna come back, and then we're going to watch Biden slowly slip a blade into the backs of railway workers. So don't go anywhere. Just hang here for 2 seconds. What am I thinking? Do we want to do? I like this one. All right, be back in a sec, guys. I know I'm back. Calm down. Anyway, so I don't know if you've heard, but it seems like we might have a bit of supply chain issues right around the Christmas time. So right now there are railway workers, or railroad workers, right? I'm assuming that's what it would be called. Yeah, right. Yeah. Wait. Railroad? Rail strike. No, that's not what I was looking for. Railroad workers. Let's just go with that. I'm assuming that's what they're called. Anyway, they have been fighting for over the last, like, I want to say like month or 2 months or so, to secure a more equitable contract between the workers and the executives, I suppose, management. I'm not sure what the word you would use for them, but the ownership of the of these railroads. Now, from what I understand, there's quite a limited amount of railroad companies that have kind of divvied up the U.S. in a 1950s wrestling style territory region. So, the options for customers is not very high. A lot of these railroads and a lot of these rail companies basically hold like territorial monopolies over a lot of kind of the rail infrastructure that we have in the US here. So let's take a look. We're going to listen to Biden's remarks and then read a little article by Politico. I think it's Politico, right? Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, it's Politico about this. So let's jump right in.
Let's take a listen.
Well, good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
As you might guess, I am very pleased.
It's like 8:30 for me.
A tentative labor agreement that has been reached between the railroad workers and the railway companies.
Right.
This agreement is a big win for America and for both, in my view.
So, let's be clear. They've been going a little bit back and forth in terms of the contract negotiations over the last couple of weeks. One of the biggest asks that the workers have really been pushing for has been sick time. So basically, if you've ever worked, you've ever been sick, you have to call out because you're not feeling well or whatever's going on, you would use maybe some accrued sick time that's based on the hours that you're working, so that you're not missing out on being paid, and you're also keeping your job. Obviously, that luxury is not afforded to railroad workers. So the people who are transporting all of the goods all over the country do not have the ability to call out when they're sick. They're just kind of fucked. So it's a pretty basic human, I think, what's the word? Right, that you should have sick time, all businesses. I believe that all businesses should offer sick time along with vacation time. Now, here's the problem. For the railroad companies to accommodate sick time, which when you have sick time, when you have people, if you've ever worked a normal job, what usually happens when someone calls out. They call somebody in, or maybe a few people stay a bit late or whatever it is. But the biggest thing you have to worry about is coverage of duties. So making sure that the ship still runs, or in this case the train still runs properly even with one person gone. What you need for that most of the time, almost all the time, is more people. So unfortunately for these railroad workers, their staff has been getting slashed quite a lot over the last couple of years, and because of that, it's led to a worker shortage. So, kind of inducing their own worker shortage, and then kind of putting the consequences of that shortage onto the workers is what these railroad workers are pushing back against. So, again, the negotiations have been kind of going back and forth. Let's kind of hear what Biden has to say. I just want to interject with that because I think a lot of where this issue comes up has been a bit, people kind of, I think, don't want to talk about. I haven't heard a lot of talk about kind of where the issue of sick time comes from, which usually comes from just staffing issues. If you've worked in the last couple of years, you might have noticed everywhere is having a hard time hiring because a lot of places, a lot of employers just don't really offer a lot to people. So anyway,
I want to thank the lead negotiators from the labor movement, the Brother Locomotive Engineers, and the trainmen.
goddamn, dude.
Association of Sheet Metal and Air and Rail.
Biden is just like shriveling up as we watch him. I can't wait to see like the pre-president, post-president pictures.
Of their work. It's a recognition of that. During these early, dark, uncertain days of the pandemic,
I gotta say,
they showed up.
this is completely unrelated. This has nothing to do with anything. This is just me off the cuff. But I'm not gonna lie. I feel like if I was president, I'd be picking some flyer outfits, man. Like you got the white shirt with the blue vertical stripes. You got the blue tie with the blue jacket, probably with a lighter blue tie with the darker blue jacket with the darker blue pants. Like, I mean, come on, guys, come on. We can do better. Our presidents can do better with their suits. Let me see some cool stitching. I don't know, something. I'm just looking at this. It looks like the most flat fucking suit ever. It's why I'm not a fan of suits.
Got the deliveries they needed during these difficult few years.
Give me some maroons or something, man. Remember that time Obama wore a tan suit? Fucking bold. That's what made Obama the best president ever.
Increase over the next 5 years. Improved working conditions. Peace of mind around their health care by capping the cost that workers will have to pay. And it's about the right to.
So a big part of these negotiations has been kind of the pay raises, along with a few of these other kind of little nice benefits and stuff. But something that the railroad companies seem to be absolutely allergic to is offering sick time, which was the biggest ask from these workers, because these workers have no ability, again, like I mentioned, have no ability to stay home when they're sick, and that's the one thing that they have not budged on. Because if you hire more, if you are I say awarding or rewarding, but quite frankly, they've earned sick time through their work. But if you're facilitating sick time for people, that necessitates you to hire more people to fill those gaps that will almost surely crop up. Which, at the end of the day, if a company, and we're going to use basic numbers here, if they've got 10 people and they're like, shit, I can't have any of them call out. Okay, if we offer all of them sick time, how many people do we need to hire? Do we need to double our staff to 20? Do we need to double it by half and go to 15? Guess what? That's 5 extra wages. Their cost goes up. At the end of the day, they don't want to offer sick time, not because sick time costs them money. It's because hiring the people who will facilitate that sick time will cost them money. And at the end of the day, like, I heard an estimate that it's somewhere around like 3% of it would cut into 3% of their profits, which is, it's 3%, for fuck's sake. It's 3 goddamn percent. Like, come on.
Go to a doctor or stay healthy and make sure you're able to have the care you can afford. It's all part of this agreement.
Yeah, they did offer health care, but just no sick time.
And this is a great deal for both sides, in my view. The agreement is also a victory for railway companies. And I want to thank the lead negotiators from the National Railway Labor Conference, and our major rail companies. These companies also played a critical role in keeping America moving during the pandemic, and that's not hyperbole, it's a fact. With this agreement, railroad companies will be able to retain and recruit workers. They'll be able to continue to operate.
Well, the thing is, and again, here's the problem, is they're not going to recruit more people. Or if they do, they're going to recruit the barest of bare minimum. Like this is the problem with this, unfortunately, is there is no interest by these companies of hiring more people. That's, at the end of the day, they all, you'll hear people say like, oh, labor is your largest cost. That's not true at all. First of all, it's a rather fixed cost, actually. So unlike a lot of actual product and supplies, the actual cost of human labor is very not just plannable but very predictable. So if you hire 10 people at $5, you now know what it's going to cost you. Apologies, guys. You're going to be able, you can easily track that with no issues. You know exactly what your human cost is in terms of doing business. But when it comes to materials, when it comes to supplies, when it comes to manufacture, any of that stuff fluctuates with the market. So this whole the entire myth of the human labor is like one of your most costly. It's bullshit. It's bullshit. It's a fixed cost that you can absolutely. It's easily one of the most plannable costs that you have as a business owner.
Effectively as a vital piece of our economy. They're really the backbone of the economy. I have this visual image of rails being the backbone. I mean, literally the backbone of the economy. So I thank the.
I really appreciate that visual.
They've been up for 20 straight hours.
You needed to, Biden. You really needed to say it twice for me to get what you meant, man.
In fact, the negotiators here today, I don't think they've been to bed yet. So I don't want to keep this very long, and they're having to stand. It would be together, we reached an agreement. You reached an agreement that will keep our critical rail system working and avoid disruptions of our economy. And I'm grateful.
Which, let me just say that I think that's. I don't think it's a big stretch to really think that the thing that Biden is concerned about and what Democrats are more concerned about in the long run is this strike becoming a political football, essentially, or becoming a political whipping stick, essentially, because they know that a railroad strike would utterly devastate the holiday season and the good old American spirit of ordering a bunch of shit online and having it delivered to your doorstep. Like this will be used again. If this was allowed to kind of continue, this would have created a lot of political pressure on Biden and a lot of negative pressure at that. So let's take a look at this article from Politico so we can learn a little bit more. Inside Biden's decision to halt the rail strike. So essentially Biden, encouraged Congress to step in and put a halt to the strike and not allow them to legally be allowed to strike. So President Joe Biden knew that he'd be risking backlash from his labor allies if he stepped in to head off a holiday season rail strike. Also, it was not a coincidence that this strike was beginning and taking place around the holiday season. This is the season where the most pressure was going to be put on the railroad companies. But the dangers a strike would pose to the U.S. economy and Americans' health and safety proved too great as months of talks barreled towards a December 9th deadline with no resolution in sight. White House aides said Tuesday after Biden asked Congress to impose a settlement that left many union supporters angered. So the federal government has the ability, when there is a strike, in the small cases. So generally when there's a strike, the government has no real input into those things. So if you're like if you're like a Hot Topic employee or something, and you get your fellow coworkers together and you want to go on strike and it's Christmas or whatever, guess what? Nobody's coming to weigh in on that sort of decision, right? But airlines and railroads are in their own separate universe because they're federal infrastructure. Because the federal government, I don't remember the year, but let's go with a long fucking time ago, made the decision that trains, and then I believe they grandfathered in planes once that became more of the way that we also transported goods, needed to be kind of overseen to a degree from a legal standpoint in terms of contract negotiations with the federal government. So, and the reason behind that is mainly because, if you can't deliver, goods and the rest of that across the country, your supply chains for literally everything get fucked. Like it would cripple the US economy. Utterly. It would cripple the US economy because there'd be no way for people, like businesses, like, grocery stores would not be able to get their produce. Any like goods and craft store or something wouldn't get their materials. Any, your local GameStop's not getting the new Call of Duty. All of, like, so much of this stuff is built into those supply chains. So because the government has the ability to step in on that, they actually can kind of do whatever they want. So the federal government can step in, Congress can step in and say, hey, guess what? You, the railroad company, are going to take the deal that the union workers have proposed. And when they go, we don't want to do that, the federal government looks at them and goes, fucking deal with it. We're the federal government. Unless you'd like your license to do business here taken away, you're going to deal with them. This is the deal you're taking. They also have to be in the business of kind of writing that deal. Most of the time, they just kind of default to whatever the deals are. But essentially, they're able to enforce a deal upon the relationship between the union and the striking workers and the company. But a key aspect of that is that there is nothing written in like those, in the ability to do that. There's nothing that says that they must pick a specific side or that, a deal has to be anything. It's just the federal government has the ability to step in and enforce contract negotiations, basically. And the thing, so technically they can do what I said, come in and go, hey, you're taking the workers' deal. That's it. Everyone get back to work. We're done. You're done. You're done. You're taking the deal. Fucking deal with it. Or they can take the company's deal. Or they can also tell them, okay, you're not allowed. What's kind of also happening is basically they're telling them they're not allowed to strike right now and that they need to come to a resolution sometime in the future. But for now, they're not allowed to negotiate and they have to stop. And that's what's happening. So like, Biden being the like union president that he pretends to be and then doing this is very revealing. Let's see. The administration also worried that Republicans, who are set to take control of the House in January, could impose an even less labor-friendly deal if the strike threat is still lingering then. Then you could just take the pro-worker deal. Could just do that. So Biden is pinning his hopes on Democratic... There we go. Sorry. Democratic-led Congress resolving the impasse. Something that appears likely to happen in the coming weeks, despite grumbling by some lawmakers in both parties. Oh, yeah. Let's be clear. What the fuck am I watching? I do not want to watch. What is playing? I don't want to watch this. Stop it. Obviously, members in both parties in Congress want nothing to do with this, mainly because they don't want to, at the end of the day, they're kind of playing with fire here because their corporate interests are in one hand and their actual voting interest is going to be in the other. So they don't want any part of this, but Biden has kicked it off to them. It's unclear whether they'll do it before shipments of some critical supplies, such as chlorine or drinking water, begin to shut down this weekend. Biden's decision to request Congress's intervention late Monday came after phone calls over recent days with Labor Secretary Marty Walsh, Agriculture Secretary Tom Vilsack, and Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg, the trio of aides running point for the White House on the issue. Geez, should I really be shocked that Pete Buttigieg, Mr. former McKenzie what's it called? A consultant is not interested in taking the union workers' side on this one. Should I be shocked? Familiar with planning? Yeah. In the end, they said Biden figured that the blowback from the unions and highly progressive members of Congress would be limited. I feel like that's maybe from progressives in Congress, but I'd say you're going to lose a lot of votes come 24, which you're going to kind of need, dumbass. So, not the smartest move. We hit a spot where even if we could get the parties to agree at a table, the period to ratify would run past the shutdown date of December 9th. One top Biden aide said the agonizing decision process. The official, like the others, declined to be identified by name to speak freely about the final days before the decision. So it just became impossible to get a deal agreed to and ratified before the key date. So understand, they're playing kind of like, oh, we need to figure like something. Again, they can kind of pick whatever it is they want to be the deal. Like this isn't, they can just pick what one side wants and what the other side wants. The rail strike could topple an already challenged economy at a cost of around $2 billion per day, but the deal Biden endorsed will leave a dozen unions representing more than 100,000 rail workers without concessions on issues such as paid sick leave, a bitter outcome for members of the pro-labor president's most beloved constituency. Yes, and that was the biggest ask of them. Sick leave was the biggest ask. Anticipating those complaints, the White House crafted talking points, noting that the deal will include worker-friendly provisions from a tentative agreement that Walsh had helped broker on September 15th, which temporarily averted the rail threat. Those include a 24% pay hike, along with language from recent legislation aimed at boosting domestic microchip manufacturing. Again, that's not what they asked for. They're not asking for massive raises. They want sick time, because a raise is not like, if you can just be fired because you don't have sick time and you can't call out sick, then your wage is not really secure. Like, at the end of the day, it doesn't fucking matter. Like it's like, oh, I get paid $80,000 a year to be like a railroad worker, but if I call out sick once, that's it. There goes all of that. So it's like, that doesn't do anybody any good. What are you supposed to do? Just not get sick ever? Like, the official said that the White House did not want to extend the rail talks into January. Quote, if you don't get a deal, you let the House GOP move the bill settling it. The official said it would not be this bill. Probably, but like, this is another case where like Biden could absolutely be doing better. But unfortunately, with a Republican flank, he seems like he's just gonna kind of settle for half-assing it, not doing one of his largest constituencies, not performing good politics on their behalf, and it's probably gonna cost him. So, when we see the voting numbers come 24, and how many votes he lost in some of these areas where these workers are, I don't want to hear any other opining over culture stuff or over this or that progressive talking point going too far. No, you lost these people when you didn't support them in the strike. The House is scheduled to take up the deal in a pair of votes Wednesday, including one that would impose the contract terms on the handful of unions that have rejected tentative agreements with the railroads. A second vote would add 7 days of paid sick leave to the deal, a provision that would deliver at least a symbolic win to union supporters that would face tougher odds of getting through the Senate. Yeah, I mean, even you should have started with the one that gives them 7 days of sick leave and then moved from there. Which, again, 7 days of sick leave out of 365, it's not really all that great. A lot of places will have you accrue sick time. That's, I think, how my workplace does it. I think that's much more the fair system. Depending on how much you've worked, you've earned a certain amount of time to be sick. I mean, granted, I think you should kind of just be given a flat rate every single year, and then from there accrue. If I'm like, emperor of all businesses. Anger from unions and progressives percolated Tuesday, though. So far, it appears to fall short of the sweeping denunciations, and some labor activists demanded the Brotherhood of Maintenance of Way Employees. I feel like there's supposed to be another E in there. One of the 4 unions whose members had rejected a proposed contract agreement with the railroad said it was deeply disappointed by the president. A call to Congress to act immediately to pass legislation that adopts tentative agreements that exclude paid sick leave ignores the railroad workers' concerns, the union said in a statement. It both denies railroad workers their right to strike while also denying them of the benefit they would likely otherwise obtain if they were not denied their right to strike. Yeah, so basically, yeah. Still, the union reserved its fury for the robber baron railroads that had rebuffed its demands. So did labor supporters such as Bernie Sanders, independent from Vermont, fucking base god. At a time of record profits in the rail industry, it's unacceptable that rail workers have 0 guaranteed paid sick days. It's my intention to block consideration of the railroad legislation until a roll call vote occurs on guaranteeing 7 paid sick days to rail workers in America. So understand, I hope everyone understands, if these striking workers get their 7 days, it's because of Bernie Sanders. Some in the GOP used the issue to attack Biden from the left, portraying the proposed congressional action as a betrayal to workers. Asking Congress to meddle in this and turn its back on workers is insane, said Rick Scott, who does not give a fuck about workers. Marco Rubio criticized the deal. Go away, little Marco. I don't have any time for you, my friend. Go away. The White House could have asked Congress to extend the rail negotiations cooling off period beyond December 9th, buy more time for the parties to come together. But a second administration official said the parties are in the talks, the biggest railroads, plus the rail unions that were still holding out against the September agreement, did not ask for an extension. So essentially, both of them are like, no, we don't need an extension. This is what we want. This is what they want. The government now needs to make a decision in terms of, if by December 9th the decision has to be made, we're not budging. These are our hard lines. Take your pick of the 2 options. The unions also didn't request further White House intervention to broker a deal. This official said, which naturally, I don't really think you want Biden stepping in. Obviously, the railroads don't mind it because he's coming down kind of in their favor. But why didn't we ask for a cooling off extension? The official said. The simple answer is there was no request for it to be extended, and there was acknowledgement from all parties involved that they were not making progress. Oh my god! Excuse me. So late Monday, Biden found himself forced to hold his nose and do something he hates: limit the ability of labor unions to use all the tools at their disposal, including strikes, to force the best possible contract terms. Okay. I don't think we need to really read more of that. That's pretty evident. Look, Biden, at the end of the day, as much as the right kind of tries to brand him as some a leftist vanguard, he's not. It would be a liability for the economy to take the hit of a railroad strike right now. It would be a liability for Republicans to come into office, undermine or stay out of the negotiations. And, depending on what they would end up doing, they would either stay out of negotiations, blame Biden anyway, or they would get involved and, maybe they, do a little bit of compromise, and then they get the credit from the labor union workers for, passing a pro-labor bill. I don't think that would happen. Most likely they would just keep punting it and never make a decision on it and let kind of things crumble, and they'd probably use that as a political vehicle to gain power in the next presidential election, along with the next set of Senate and House seats that are going to be open come 24. So at the end of the day, there are railroad workers who are not going to be able to exercise their right to protest, their right to strike, because it would be politically disadvantageous for Biden and his administration, and for Democrats. Unfortunately, and at any point Biden could have sat down and taken the workers aside, but he chose not to. At the end of the day, he's the president of the United States. So either way, big disappointment, big disappointment from the self-described pro-labor president. So a lot of times, unfortunately, when it comes to these more centrist Democrats, when push comes to shove, when it really comes down to it, they're generally not going to be siding with labor. I think hopefully that's clear to people now. As good as Biden has been on labor issues, stuff like this kind of reveals where his breaking points are. So yeah. Anyway, so let's talk a little bit about elections, shall we? So the 2024 midterm elections are quickly coming up. And with those, we already have 2 announced candidates for the Republican nomination so far. We have in one corner the former president, and I think who's probably most likely to end up walking away with it at the end of the day. We have Donald Trump. And in the... Give me like 1 second. In the weirdest timeline, like, if you'd have asked me, is Kanye gonna run for president? I would say probably not, but I can kind of see it. And then if you ask me, is Kanye gonna run for president on like explicit, on the back of like explicit anti-Semitic rhetoric, I'd be like, I'd probably say that sounds a bit far-fetched. I don't foresee that. And then if you ask me, will Kanye West be running for president under the Republican Party's banner, or at least attempting to run under the Republican Party's banner, being consulted and having his campaign managed by what appears to be Nick Fuentes, who we saw last episode. I don't need to say anything about Nick Fuentes. I think his views are fairly obvious. And Milo Yiannopoulos, I would have said fuck no. I definitely would have said fuck no. The idea that these 2 guys are leading Kanye West, one of the most, I'll say it, prolific rappers of all time, of history, in a presidential bid for the Republican Party, I color me shocked. I am thoroughly shocked. This is not the timeline that I thought I lived in, but apparently it is. So let's now take a look at those 3 guys' appearance on Tim Pool's IRL podcast that he does. Haven't watched a lot of Tim Pool. We've watched a bit on this channel, but not a whole lot. So be interested to kind of see how he approaches this, since he's, a centrist and stuff. Totally. But yeah, let's dive in, shall we?
Epstein itself. And if this YouTube channel is Epstein, we will be streaming on Twitter. So yeah, I started a t-shirt company after YouTube demonetized me. So thebestpoliticalshirts.com, because you guys buy it. That's why I'm here. Thank you so much for having me.
And of course, Serge.
And I am Serge.com. Pleasure, guys.
All
I have no idea who
and,
these people
I'll
are.
just pull up this story from The Hill, which is from earlier today, 5 p.m. Pence says
Is this
Trump
like
should
not-
apologize.
I'm
It's
sorry.
wrong to give.
He pushed the dinner back to November.
And,
Oh, are
and
they
what-
like talking about? Okay,
Also,
okay, cool.
should apologize. It's
Okay,
wrong
here
to
we go.
give anti-Semite a seat. At
I
the
wasn't
table.
sure if Kanye
This, of
was
course,
on
is
yet.
related to a dinner that happened, and I was wrong a little on the details. So a dinner happened. Nick, you were there. Yay, you were there. I just want to start off by how did this dinner come to happen, and what happened?
I was talking to Trump for about a month. We had scheduled the dinner in October, and then he announced for president. He pushed the dinner back to November. And
This has to be the most
put together
subdued
a
I've seen
campaign, and after
Kanye in a while.
The DEF CON tweet, a bunch
Right,
of people
right,
that
right,
been
right.
canceled, like Alex Jones. I started getting in contact with other people that were now on the, the inside
Other
producers.
right wing operatives, right,
And,
right, right.
Alex Jones, producer, said that Milo wanted to contact me, and here we are.
So that's how you guys got in contact.
Wait, is that Milo now?
And then I
Wait, what? Wait. That's Milo now? Holy shit. Wow. Why does it look like he's holding like a brush? Like a painter's brush. Wow, dude. I remember I do remember. I am young enough to remember Milo Yiannopoulos. That's not who I expected to see. Okay. That's what okay.
suggested that we bring in.
How do people wear
Nicholas as
shades
a
indoors? I
enormous
swear.
Extra brain firepower that he is. He's the most extraordinarily brilliant political commentator of his generation, and he's been treated just about as badly as anybody. So I thought he deserved to be in the room too. And yeah.
Is he talking about
pretty much how
Nick?
we got together.
So I have some questions about that, but we'll get through the dinner.
He's the most extraordinarily brilliant political commentator of his generation, and did that we bring in Nicholas as
Oh, yeah, it's talking about Nick. Ah, yes, brilliant. Brilliant commentator who really just says racist shit, and that's kind of it.
And
Cool. Sounds cool. Sounds cool.
So I have some questions about that, but we'll get through the dinner portion of how exactly this happened, what went down. So this is how you get in contact, the three of you. How is it that Nick ends up invited to this dinner, and what happened?
Well, he was rolling with me. I was impressed with Nick, and I was like, just come to the dinner. And we had Karen Giorno pick us up from the airport, and there was a lot of.
How are you like impressed? I've seen like little clips of like Nick's show. It's a bit rough around the edges.
He's an engineer.
I'm no one to talk, but like still, like someone like Kanye, you would think he'd be. You would think this would be the face. This is like the face I make when I see a Nick Fuentes clip from his show, because I'm just like, okay. He just says racist stuff on what looks like a fucking toilet paper feed. Got it.
Boeing and his.
I'm telling him just we should raise everyone's volume.
Okay, cool. And we sat there, and it was like when Trump came in, I said, do you want to sit alone? He's like, no, bring your friends in. So a big thing is like Trump had no idea who Nick Fuentes was. But this whole, I just got to go right to
which
the
I
heart
find really
of
funny
this
because
anti-Semite claim
like,
that's happening. This is something, if you read the definition.
Trump is like Nick's been very, 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 very supportive and integral when it comes to like the whole MAGA America First movement. Like that's kind of a lot of his base of support. So the idea that and again, he's a former president. You couldn't tell me that he doesn't know who Nick Fuentes is.
It says you can't claim that there's multiple people inside of banks or in media that are all Jewish or you're anti-Semitic. And that's the truth.
Wait, is that the definition of anti-Semitic? Because I don't think it is. Kanye, I'm sorry. That's not the definition of anti-Semitic. Is not pointing out that there are Jewish people who work in banking. The anti-Semitic part is that there are people in banking and they're all Jewish, or they're bankers because they are Jewish and they also run the world economy, and they move as a unit through all the world's economy. That would be the anti-Semitic part, and it's really only anti-Semitic because that's the exact same talking point that the Nazis made to what's the word to what is the word I'm looking for to propagandize against Jewish folks back in the 1930s Germany.
Like, it's the truth. What are we talking about? And
Elaborate. What do you mean? You mean
I'm saying, like, I've been labeled anti-Semite, right? So
right, because you spread
there's
anti-Semitic
different
talking
beliefs
points
about our bloodlines, you know, like the documentary that Kyrie posted. And in general, America has been left ignorant and history has been changed. So when we start questioning things that question the indoctrination, then you immediately get,
this is the usual. I have a different opinion. You need to treat it as if it was also as factual as like the official opinion of most people who study like a topic, where it's like, nope, that's also not really what's happening, Kanye. I'm really sorry, man. That's not what's happening. The issue is not you're asking questions. The issue is that you're making prescriptions. The issue is that you're actively giving an answer, and your answer is the Jews run the world. We clearly need to do something about the Jewish problem. That's why it's like colloquially called the Jewish question.
Happened to you, or
demonetized, deplatformed?
Demonized, demonetized. And what's so beautiful about
fucking
this
Kanye
time
writing bars right now in his head.
Everyone got to see what's really been happening, and now we can
Which
really understand. We
is?
can see that Ron Emanuel was right next to Obama, and then Jared Kushner was right next to Trump.
Which means,
so you,
God, I fucking love that he does the fucking sound effects. Oh man, he's like spreading awful anti-Semitic what's it called talking points, but at least he's doing it with the sound effects.
God. I guess, right? I was hoping to go for the news first before we got into all of this stuff.
Jesus.
I think the issue is one way to put it is you're expounding upon a localization issue that you've witnessed, right? Let me clarify.
A localization issue
in a certain place, and then you associate Judaism with the power, whereas I view that as not relevant to it. Like, yeah, you're substantially more powerful than I am, but I don't view what you're doing as an issue of black people.
Yeah, but have you ever heard the term the black vote? So it's okay to put us in one net, but it's not okay for me to put them in one net.
Wait, no, people do that. It's called the Jewish vote. There is a Jewish vote. There's also a Latino vote. There's also a white vote. There's, fun fact, Kanye, there's the X vote for like every group, because that's how demographics work. You win the black vote when you win a majority of black voters. You win the Latino vote when you garner the majority of Latin votes. It's not really. I don't understand what's the big deal with this. That's like if I was like, what about the rapper vote? And then I was like, I gained the most support over people who rap, so it's the rapper vote. Is that controversial? It's not. It doesn't mean anything.
Yeah, but I mean,
that's the basis of the hypocrisy that people have been thinking about and knowing about and
I hate to say it, but it looks like he has a corduroy like suit jacket. I do like that more than Biden's very bland, very blue, very boring suit jacket. I just want to throw that out there. Not saying I like the look. The look is cringe. It's way too much brown, way too much dark tones. I don't know what's going on with these sunglasses. You're indoors, my guy. Nobody else is wearing sunglasses. For fuck's sake, take those off. Also not sure what's going on with the haircut and with the like inability to shave either. There's a lot of problems with this. But the jacket isn't one of them. It's a nice jacket. And also, again, the hypocrisy. What hypocrisy? That somebody said the black vote? Bernie won the Latino vote in Nevada in the last what's the word? Democratic primary votes. Whoa, crazy. Almost like it's not a big deal at all. Not interesting.
Realizing for decades, we were all wondering how this dam was going to break. Everybody in the country wondered, what is the root of this hypocrisy? Why
I also
do
keep
people
forgetting
talk
he's
about white
British.
people a certain way? Can't they talk about that group a certain way?
Wait,
And,
can't we talk about
the wretched and wicked and
wretched-
oppressive prevailing orthodoxy
wretched and the wicked?
of cancel culture? Well, it turned out that the one thing that was going to
Cancel
break the dam was the biggest
culture.
star in the world, and it took the biggest star in the world to do it.
The biggest star in the
now
world.
the dam is broken.
First of
So
all,
let me tell you
first of all, Kanye West is not the biggest star in the world. That honor goes to who's like the biggest. We're not doing this. That goes to literally anybody else.
my issue. I don't like identitarianism. You guys
Actually,
familiar
here,
with what that is?
here it is. Biggest star in the world, Taylor Swift. Fucking deal with it.
Well,
Yeah,
they started it, and they've been visiting
Sure,
on us.
They started
They're
it.
gonna break it.
When I was asking you about running for
They
president,
started it.
you immediately said, well, you know, you'd be good for the black vote. And I said, is that because I'm black? No, not just because of that. So is that, are you doing the same thing?
I didn't say that was the only reason. I said it was because you're personable to the common person, and you probably would.
It's
do well with
personable to the common person. Fucking Tim was like, Tim heard the Kanye was like, you said I was good for the black vote. What do you mean by that? Tim heard the Metal Gear Solid and was like, shit. How do I get out of this? Shit. Common person. Black people are common people, right? Yeah, totally.
Just because I'm black, because a lot of black people don't like me.
Of course, I think race plays a role in a lot of things, absolutely, and I think that for
I think the construct of race has really been forced upon us as just something for us to be woke about and just constantly talk about and use it as these like.
Oh my god, an actual take I don't agree with, but he is right. Race is just a social construct, and it's just a way of people dividing each other. It's not necessary for society. It really is just its only real purpose is to kind of divide people up into different groups and to pit groups against each other. So there's a reason you'd be interested in race or any of that sort of stuff. Now, here's the difference. Kanye sees it as, it's like the left's problem because they want to be woke about it, right? He's like I'm not really 100% sure where his brain is at the moment, but like, let me just say, Kanye, the only reason why like the left and really broader society talks about race, talks about the implications of race in terms of demographics, in terms of equal justice under the law, and all the rest of these things. The only reason why that happens, it's a really simple one, is because right-wingers can never shut the fuck up and stop fucking complaining about race, because they're constantly put upon in their minds, by these other races. They don't like immigrants because they're like, now you're bringing somebody in who doesn't look like me. It's why the great replacement theory is like a thing that they're obsessed over. It's why they're constantly, it's why they tried for hundreds of years and then all through Reconstruction to undermine the freedom of black people. The left has no interest in continuing to talk about race, but unfortunately, because the right is obsessed with creating a hierarchical structure that is based on somebody's race, that is based on essential characteristics of their person, we always have to talk about it. So, Kanye, unfortunately, you're on the side who won't shut the fuck up about racism because they're the ones perpetuating it. Sorry. I'm sorry.
Walls.
could you say the same thing about Judaism?
Well, let's look at the facts of what I'm saying, though. If you say in this neighborhood where they gerrymander, there's this amount of time. So, hey, I wasn't doing that. I was just gerrymandering the lawyers and Hollywood executives.
I don't think Kanye is. And I don't even.
To me and then froze my accounts. It's like we want to jump into protecting the idea that we can't put a net around something, right? But that's been my job.
Am I crazy? What am I on? We're on 1.25. How slow is he talking?
Producer to take, a
Holy
Roy Ayers
shit.
sample and put a James Brown drum and put it within a 2-minute, 3-minute song.
Are we doing this? Kanye, this is not the moment that I want to hear about how you make fire beats with good soul samples. This is not the time for that, Kanye. Look, man, you want to do like a Nebula or like a what's the other one? What's the other one? It's like the other platform that like creators do now. It's not it's like it's the one where you learn shit. Fuck, I can't think of it right now. What is it called? I don't fucking remember. Who cares? By the way, Kanye, if you'd like to do like a TED talk of how you like make like fire soul sampled beats, I'll show up for that, man. I'll show up. I'll show up every episode. But this has nothing to do with politics, and also this is incredibly incoherent. I don't even know. I don't even know what the fuck he's talking
That's the way I actually think, and that's the way I talk. And now this morning, I found out that they were trying to put me in prison because what they did was
in prison.
I moved $140 million into J.P. Morgan.
No.
And I said I want to talk to Jamie Dimon. Like, look at me, I'm just going in naive, multi-billionaire. Like,
Not how it
maybe
works.
Jamie Dimon will let me in on some deal flow. Wrong. And I'm just like banging my hands, like I want to meet with Jamie, and I start complaining online, and then they debank me for complaining. And so I'm about to get debanked. They're like, you need to go to.
So this is actually something that happens to normal people also. If you like do too much, like if you act in a disrespectful way or a just certain kind of you're just doing way too much right now kind of way, banks and financial institutions will like fire you and be like, nope, you're good, you can go elsewhere, we don't, you're doing the most right now, and that's not what we're here for. You can go to he was at JP Morgan, you can go to Goldman and take all that with you. That's fine, we'll give you all the money. Nope, no issue. Tell us where to send it, but no, we don't do business with like people who yell and act all kind of wild. It's the you're being a financial Karen at that point. Kanye West just described being a fucking like a financial Karen walking into JP Morgan Chase and wanting to speak with the manager. I'm surprised he doesn't have the haircut right now.
Trump's the bank, AXO, whatever, you got to go. And I'm like, I've been trying to buy my own bank for the longest. And then we figured out how to get my own bank. It's like 50 million, 75 million. So I'm about to buy my own bank. But then,
oh boy,
I was about to take the money out. Here comes Adidas with a $275 million bill for marketing funds that they agreed upon. Because I said to them, hey, I'm the marketing, give me the marketing fund, which proves by the response they got when they, stole the designs and said, we're going to not call them Yeezys anymore. So this is what I was already fighting Adidas for. So I'm fighting Gap, get out of Gap, fighting Adidas. And
does anybody else think like most of the time? So Nick Fuentes, Milo Yiannopoulos, all the rest of these guys. Does anybody else find it to be like rather obvious that like they're just using Kanye as like a I don't even want to say Trojan horse. It's not, they're not gonna get very far with him as a candidate. But like every time he gets on one of these shows, every time he's on one of these podcasts, every time, what does he talk about? He complains about Adidas. He complains about, whatever other fashion brand. I don't remember all the names that he always drops. But, like, what does he do? He just complains about, like, business stuff. He wants to run all of Adidas and they won't give him all of Adidas or whatever. And, like, none of this has anything to do with what we're talking about. Like this has nothing to do with anything. This is just Kanye complaining about shit. And meanwhile, Nick Fuentes, Milo Yiannopoulos are getting reintroduced to the cultural zeitgeist again through Kanye. And also, I mean, obviously they're grifting for money, but like the broader goal so far, it seems like it's just going to end up being them using Kanye, using his clear issues that he has with his bipolar disorder, and using that to push their politics and to have somebody who's quite frankly not 100% there to push their politics. So, as much as there's an aspect of this where I do feel bad for Kanye, but there's also an aspect where I kind of don't. But it's just, That's all this is. That's all this is. This is just a campaign where Kanye gets to get on soapboxes, gets invited on shows to complain about how he's been mistreated as one of the richest people probably in the entire world. And meanwhile, Milo and Nick Fuentes get to kind of what's the word? Kind of rehab a bit of their reputation a little bit. They show up back on Timcast. Fuentes was on YouTube recently, where these are all platforms they've already been kicked off of. Like, works out for them. Kanye, at the end of the day, not going to. Kanye's not going to get a lot out of this relationship by the end of it. The fuck is Nick Fuentes or Milo Yiannopoulos going to do about Adidas? What are they going to? They're going to convince Adidas to take him back or to sign back with them? No, not going to happen.
And then I deal with this little bit of noise from, Zionism from the fashion world, where they use this plant named Gabby, who's obviously like some kind of CIA agent, knows nothing about fashion.
Ryan, I only really mean that I feel sorry for him in the sense of like he's obviously mentally unwell and they're taking advantage of him. I can't feel that bad for him, but like in that very specific aspect, it's like, wow, that's not good at all. That's pretty shit.
This is a certain thing. When someone can't dress, you know that they're not like a fashion person. They're just there
Oh my
as
God.
like the society, like the control that they try to use on celebrities, which has now been broken, right? Because where it broke. Okay, I want to get on like LeBron in a second, but I'm going to come back to this and just talk about this morning where.
Oh yeah, they are. Shit. Oh my God, I forgot about that. Oh no, that's right. He's buying Parlor. Fuck, you fucking idiot. Oh no, this is really depressing when I think about it. Like, oh my God, Kanye, you fucking idiot. Oh, he's buying Parlor, that's right. Everybody is going to benefit except for Kanye for this. The only thing that Kanye is going to get is like more psychic damage from this experience. That's it.
Resnick tells me, and I tell all of my finance people, never use the term a lot, but they said, okay, you're gonna have to pay a lot of taxes, and that made me feel like they're just like waiting, like we finally got him, we finally can put him in jail.
How many taxes?
Like,
a lot.
for president in jail?
Well, we paying a lot.
That's fine.
A lot.
It'll be okay.
But if you were Jeffrey Epstein, they wouldn't touch your bank account. They would allow you to break the rules, regulations, just like JP Morgan and Chase did, just like Deutsche Bank did. So there is an issue to bring up with that. But when it comes to the race stuff, I think this is an important discussion to have.
What's
because
the okay? So is this guy just like Epstein obsessed? You're every like, dude, take a break. Take a fucking break, please. You're a bit Epstein obsessed.
Okay, go ahead.
All right, because I'm talking about literally finding out that they were trying to put me in prison this morning. Watch this. So
This morning.
yes. So not come to my house this morning, but I found out. Okay, so they put a $75 million hold.
That
on
would
4 of
be
my accounts.
that would be
And then they said,
what's best
"You owe
for
a lot
society.
of
I would
taxes."
agree
It took
with
me
that.
like 6 hours to find out how much a lot was. They said, well, around.
I'll take some
$50
music too.
million. So
Kanye
I'm
makes
going
good
to
music.
Different CFOs like, okay, so with this
I wish I miss the old Kanye.
because
I'll say it. I'll say it every day.
obviously not the most financially literate person on the planet. I was just a child, basically. Like when you become famous, you stop growing at that point. I became famous at age 24, and I had handlers around. I had my mom around, different things, and it was always like you go from one handler to the next handler to the next handler. So now I'm having.
Also, this is also one of those things where, like, if you know Kanye's history, like the death of his mother in 2006 is like, in my opinion, kind of the inciting incident for all of this, like, the last like 10 plus years of just like crumbling that we've seen.
I get to actually learn how to run a company. I get to learn how to count. Really, I was like Pablo in a movie. It was like I didn't even know where to put the money. Like literally making $300 million cash, but you're just like a high-priced. We're not gonna use the S word just because it's like too passe to use it. But it's like next year I was supposed to.
What S word? High-priced shitlord? High-priced. What S word? I'm so confused. What S word?
To make $500 million in royalties, and like no one needs this amount of money. But when I would work
True.
on homeless shelters and ideas, I'd have a contractor. We won't say what race, and
The guy complaining, why is everyone always talking about race? Shackles? Maybe? I guess. Yeah, maybe. I love how the guy who's like complaining about like wokeness being about race, and the first thing he brings up is like race.
they'd be tearing down the contracts. It's all about position. It's not about the amount of money that you have. And, to come in here, I feel like it's a setup to be like defending. I'm not going to go through another, like, I'm literally going to walk the F off the show if I'm sitting up here having to, talk about, you can't say that it was Jewish people that did it when every sensible person knows that. I mean, Jon Stewart knows what happened to me and they took it too far. It was like American History X. Like my head was on the
Let's
side of
name
the
another
curve,
Jewish person.
and
I'm totally
the
not
exact people that I
anti-Semitic.
called out kicked my head. We found out that my trainer was a MK Ultra Canadian
He was,
intelligence.
he
Wait,
worked in
what?
the defense research and
Wait,
development,
what?
in the Canadian military, essentially working on psyops
Who's
in
this
the
guy?
Canadian
Huh?
military. This is Harley
What?
Pasternak.
Yeah, what I'm saying is, look, they tried to medicate me. They
Did you just drop MK Ultra out of nowhere? Don't get me wrong, I love MK Ultra like conspiracies because they're fun, but like only in the fun aspect. Like MK Ultra's fucking wild, but like Jesus Christ. Leave this shit on the fucking message boards, Kanye. Leave this shit on like conspiracy Reddit, not in the real world. Fuck's sake.
I was exhausted.
Jesus.
They wrongly diagnosed me, and they when I asked them how much lithium did you want to put me on exactly, it took them 4 days to answer because they were embarrassed about the amount. Right? And
Has
I
he like
refused
never
to
been to
take
a
this, right?
doctor? It
You
takes 4
understand
days
that
for
if I
them
had
to
taken the medication,
answer my
I would
like,
not be here, and it would
hi,
have been,
I'd like to
"Well,
schedule an
he was
appointment
deeply
call."
troubled. We miss him. We love his music though.
Well, they would have Britney Spears too. I mean, look
They
at
would have Michael Jackson.
or worse, yeah.
So
Look at what they did. Look what they did to Britney. When she went in, she was tired, she was exhausted, she was in a bad
God.
way. But 10 years of
He
that
blames
medication wrecked her
4K.
brain.
Oh,
You can see it
no.
now. You can see there's not much
What
of
is
her
for?
left.
What does MK Ultra have to do with the Jews? What does MK Ultra have to do with the Jews? Oh my god. Okay, it's just
Yes, Harley Pasternak. That's the text message that you
Yes.
posted that we were talking about.
This
before.
dude,
Before
this
Before
dude.
the show, obviously, I
Okay.
get a bunch of messages from people. People are hitting me up and they're like, "You shouldn't host them. They're anti-Semitic. They're white supremacists. They're racist." I do find the idea.
I would
find it weird
200%.
that Nick, they call you white supremacist.
I would 200% have Kanye on. I would not have the other two on. I'd be like, you leave them off. I just want to talk to Kanye. That's it.
You're here working.
But
with
that's
more
really
powerful
only
people,
mainly
more
because
powerful platform,
I'm like
more
an
wealthy
incredibly
to
small
say this.
streamer, and
But,
having Kanye West on would
a
be
lot of
really
people are
good
saying,
for my
white
career.
supremacists, we don't fight for
That's a
them. And I
little
said,
bit
well, I
of
want- I want
my
to
own
understand
personal
what I think
bias.
is they're part of. They're involved in what may be the biggest news.
But
story
also, I
of
don't
2020
want
and
him in the presence
Well,
of
that's all right. Media
weird white
controls both sides. Just said it as
supremacists.
simple as possible. Jared Kushner was next to Trump. Ron Emanuel was next to Obama.
But see-
Since 1940, go ahead.
I was gonna say, isn't that an issue of these individuals? Like you're
I'm
extrapolating.
not having. I'm going to order with the last of my money that's available in a different account. I'm going to order a PJ before I sit and have another Lex Friedman setup conversation. When I'm literally trying, they're trying to put me in jail for my opinion.
But I
I'm
get
not.
that.
I'm not going to have that opinion. I don't care about people. The people. Those are bots that are trying to tell you. We realize. Look at Pence. He sold Trump out. You know what I'm saying? It's like I would have never.
I
wanted
mean,
to do
Trump
anything
did,
that
like-
hurt Trump. I'm on Trump's side. Trump said things that hurt me.
Trump
He lied
was
about
kinda
me,
cool
but,
with him
he's known
getting,
for
like,
lying. When people
hanged.
used to tell me
I'd be
that,
pretty
he's a
upset about
liar, it's
that.
like, I went into the trenches for Trump. That's another conversation. There was no one in my position that wore that hat, and all of my surroundings exhausted me. It was like death by 1,000 questions. I know I'm jumping to another thing, but what I'm saying is, I know you got a rep for your people online, but it's like you got a person in real life that I'm not with it, bro. I lost the money for the freedom of speech, and that's what makes me the only American that we know that really deserves to run the country. Because everyone else, your boy DeSantis.
Yeah, right. Isn't like Tiffany the favored daughter now? Because like Ivanka didn't show up to the fucking announcement thing. What's up, Drew? Yeah, because like he didn't. Yeah, because like if I remember correctly, Ivanka didn't show up. So I'm assuming like Tiffany's now the favorite daughter, which is fucking wild. Like, homeboy couldn't remember Tiffany's name, and then Ivanka was like, I'm not gonna show up to this. And now he's probably like, where's the other one? What's her name? Somebody give me her name. She's in the back, I think, somewhere. She didn't show up either, sir. Oh, well, I didn't invite her anyway, so no harm, no foul.
Trump, whoever they raise in a petri dish over on the Democrat side is going to play
Basically,
the game.
yeah.
Look,
And, like,
here's what I was trying to get to.
Oh, yeah.
You went right into
Dude,
answer
the
to my
Suns-
question. I think
dude,
it's
the
something that
Suns
you talk
are,
about. You
like,
start bringing this up and
pathetic.
ask my opinion on it, I'm gonna disagree with you.
I didn't
The
ask
two
your opinion.
Suns are
No,
like
but-
such
But I don't care
bad
about your opinion. I like your
Sims.
opinion on how we win an election, but I
Yeah,
don't care
100%.
about anybody's opinion, bro.
Damn,
I lost.
get
They tried to
fucked,
put me in
Temple.
jail. They blocked $2 billion I had. Like what I told Farrakhan, I said, look, is it?
My man's like, they try to put me in jail. Like, yeah, for tax fraud. Yeah, because they gave you money for like marketing, and then your contract got, what's the word? Then your contract got, what's the word? Basically ended with Adidas, and they were like, cool, we need our money back then, because you didn't end up, we're not going to just give you like a shit ton of money for marketing. That's now not going to happen. Like,
Anti-Semitic for me to say his name out loud. Like I
The
told,
minister.
yeah, the minister. Like I told,
Obama met with him too.
oh, he was, yeah. I mean, the
Dude, this
Jewish
guy.
people allowed
This guy's
Obama to
killing
meet
me.
with the minister. You know, so
This is
Farrakhan
at
said
the
what
end
he
of the
had to weigh.
day.
The
This is
contract
at
for
the
next
end
4
of the
years is what I
day.
had to-
Like Kanye's entire criticism is essentially just every time a Jewish person does something, I'm going to say it was Jewish people, which you would kind of think people understand is not okay. But I guess in 2022 we still have to have this conversation. That like yes, like Kanye stubs his fucking toe or something and he's like, "Oh, the fucking Jews." Ah! Like Jesus.
At anything.
It's not all connected, man.
A year for 4 years. What I was fighting for was the IP, so my children could, I'm sorry. Just sometimes I think about 7 thoughts at one
We
time.
may never find
Because
out.
anything I see, I come up with like 7 answers to it, and then just choose what it is. But
Like
I-
8
what the
different
thing is, I said
answers.
my children,
None
the
of them
reason
will
why
be coherent.
My brain kind of blocked because it's like God is saying, your children are going to be okay. Baby mama's got money, right? God is using me. He's breaking me down, removing all of the
Oh, no.
richest person, all of this, so I can serve him.
Oh,
The more and
no.
more those things are taken away from me, the more I can be.
Oh,
empty
no.
and be a vessel and be able to be used. And right now,
Oh,
it's like,
no.
you're not going to take. If we can't, you're not going to take my pain
It's the
away, right?
gayest thing I've
If
ever
Jewish
heard,
people
by the
say,
way.
It's the Holocaust. This happened, and you can't say anything about it. We can't take their pain away.
My
No
man's
one's gonna
God getting
denounce the
deep
fact
inside
that They
Kanye.
tried to lock me up. That's right. Because every time I'm just holding stride, and it's like I thought I was more Malcolm X, but I find out I'm more MLK because as I'm getting hosed down every day by the press and financially, I'm just standing there. And when I found out that they tried to put me in jail, it was like a dog was biting my arm, and I almost shed a tear, almost. But I still walked in stride through it. Yeah.
I think they've been extremely unfair to you.
Who is they though? We can't say they is.
I just find it really funny that Kanye would be like, "It was like a dog was biting me," and then it's like, what was actually happening? Oh, like I had to give money back for a marketing campaign that didn't end up actually happening. Like, okay, those two things totally equal, totally equal, totally
No, Wes,
equal.
I'm not using I don't use the word as the way I guess you guys use. I'm
It
talking
is
about
them, though, isn't it? I mean, because
No.
Them.
I mean,
Oh, no.
Consider it. In 2018,
What do you mean it's not?
Oh
what
my
do I mean?
God.
Like, okay, so
We
how about-
watched a little bit of Nick Fuentes.
Really?
I couldn't believe how much of a dweeb he is.
He's gone. I'll say it right now.
Damn.
You guys want to bring that stuff up? And
Have
think
the
we're not gonna
discussion.
not gonna have a
Like,
conversation?
have the discussion.
You think he's going to come in here and say, here's my pain, here's my suffering. I'm going to say, I hear you. And then he's going to say, and it was Jewish people. And I'm going to be like, okay, but don't you consider, I'm not going to do this. I
gotta
refuse.
go, make sure he's cool.
All right, go for it. Luke and I will have a conversation. So I can't say I'm surprised. What do I even do? Other
You
than
know,
ask
I'll
him,
give him this. At least Tim talks with some speed here.
please elaborate on this. Are you referring to individuals, or are you quite literally blaming an entire group of people for the fact that powerful individuals are
The
causing
second
you
one,
harm?
Tim.
I really
Tim,
wanted to
it's
ask
the
Nick
second
about
one.
his thoughts about MLK. 'cause
Tim,
I know
it's
they
the second one.
contradict,
No,
his
no,
comments
stick with the
about
question
that.
you just
But
asked. I wanna
again,
hear an
these are
answer to
massive
that.
Generalizations that don't
I don't
really
wanna
help
hear your
anyone in my
Epstein
perspective.
obsession
They just
guy.
kind of
Stop
sound
it.
like their opposition. They sound what they're kind of going against the woke mob that's always saying.
Oh
white
my
men-
God,
white
woke
men are
mob. Oh
responsible
my
for
God,
everything.
woke
When I
mob.
see
Oh my
people just
God.
use generalizations. It kind of cheapens the conversations. It cheapens a dialogue that we could have here that I was planning to talk to Ye about, specifically bringing up like, hey, let's actually talk about this in a real concise way. Let's not get emotional. Let's not walk out of here. Let's
Let
actually
me
control
tell all you
ourselves.
guys outright. I said this is going to be a big issue.
That shirt is a
Before the show,
light one.
Obviously, people are going to bring up the questions of anti-Semitism. Why don't we talk about the news? I want to hear what happened with this meeting. I want to understand what Ye 24 is, and then we can do a longer conversation about any of that stuff.
Does he
And
come
Ye,
back to the show?
literally in the first 5 minutes, has
What are we at? 22? Does he ever come back? He doesn't come back, does he? Okay. We're going to go until they're done talking with this group of clowns. When I don't think it's really that long. But
no, I want to talk about a group of people and point to them.
Did they?
Whatever,
I
man.
saw
You know why?
Milo
Look,
ran
you're
as
not
well.
going to sit here and you're going to.
I'm assuming Nick sticks around and
But literally,
attempts
I said a
to-
couple sentences about. I
to
don't think that's fair. Did I
defend his
insult the man?
points?
He seriously can't handle. He can't handle it.
He also left during the Pierce Morgan interview he did, but he came back. So again, we should be able to have this conversation. What's up, Chris? Oh, yeah.
Look, man, I wanted to talk to these guys about why they're meeting with
Here,
Trump.
Chris.
I want to know what happened with the dinner because we hear a lot of rumors about it.
I want to hear about their
And that's
2024 platform, which they were promising, which they were talking about, like they're going to be officially.
Let me explain to everybody.
Oh yeah,
You know,
200%.
Unfortunate they walked out. Fine, maybe they'll come back. Whatever. This is the biggest challenge with dealing with.
Yeah, I mean,
vegetarians.
look, Tim needs to defend his platform, so like, it's one of those cases where he can't just let Kanye come on there and push a bunch of anti-Semitism. He knows that just will not slide. With Tim makes a lot of videos and a lot of fucking how many? Actually, I don't actually know how many. I know he's got how many. He's got 1.4 mil on this one, but I know that's not like his main channel. What is his main channel? It's just like Tim Tim Stool, right? God damn, between two stop it. Between two channels. Yeah, he's got like what, 2.7 million subscribers between both channels. Both of those might be a lot of crossover, but still. Yeah, that's at the end of the day, you have to defend your what's it called? You have to defend your what am I thinking? Platform.
I do not believe that the predeterminate factor in someone's worth value or agenda is based on immutable characteristics. Kanye's a black man. He does not represent all black people.
Yeah, okay. They don't come back. I don't care. Tim's just gonna do the usual, like, hey, totally don't support any of that stuff, even though I'm gonna support the party that actively pushes a lot of that rhetoric. So kind of not really all that useful. So let's. I watched news about it and he's starting off. Well, yeah, that's what I saw too. I saw he just kind of like fucks off and like dips out, which, whatever. I don't. It's his life. He can do whatever he wants. But all right. So last time, we watched a bit of this like no jumper thing with Fuentes, because again, he seems to be kind of making a comeback a little bit onto major platforms. I don't know if he's been allowed on Twitter, if he's allowed back on Twitter yet. I'm not sure if he will. Although I wouldn't be super shocked if he was. But last time, I don't know if you're here, Rye, but we looked over some of that, but we didn't finish it. So I kind of want to finish part of that, or at least like delve a little bit into it. So yeah, he's like a pretty open Nazi. I'm not incredibly familiar with him. That's why I was watching this interview here, or this little podcast exchange. Hey, I didn't say start talking yet. Dweeby little dweeb. Yeah, I have a locker for Nick Fuentes. That's all I really have for him if I ever met him. But yeah, I guess to continue this. So Nick Fuentes showed up on the No Jumper podcast, which I am gonna make the bold assumption that it's like a sports channel, from what I gather. Let's like take a double check, because whoa, what the hell is happening with my mouse? Oh, okay, there we go. Because I'm pretty sure like the thing, yeah, let's take a I want to look really quick. Not gonna tell me what you do. Got it, cool. We got, I don't know what that is. Is this like a hip-hop and basketball channel? Is that what I'm saying? Young Boy, Go to War, Saweetie's album. Oh god, I hate this channel. Music video, directing, Rana, beef, da-da-da-da-da. Okay, I'll let you characterize this however you'd like. Yeah, that's not my favorite thing in the world. This looks a bit cringe. But point is, they had Nick Fuentes, neo-Nazi, on, and Sneeko recently banned TikToker, YouTuber, whatever the fuck he does, on to talk about race, apparently, which has been already fun. What I've noticed so far, at least, is besides Sneeko being a dumb fuck, is mainly he seems to just kind of run defense for Nick Fuentes and just kind of do the "it's all a joke, bruv" thing the entire time. Every time somebody brings up any of Nick's previous quotes. So let's continue. We're about at the 37 minute mark. So we'll kind of go until I don't know, until we decide that we don't want to watch this anymore, or until I decide I don't want to watch it anymore because my brain's melted.
They're better. They're the best race. Would you say that because Asians are the best at math that they're the best race, or because whites have the finest literature that they're the best? Who's to say? Those are all material things. Those are all based on material conditions. If you have a religious view, then we're not just material. We have souls, and so we should have got banned from
Power. And that's not even anything.
bank account.
Okay, I'm just skipping ahead because it was.
He got locked out of Instagram. Then he got locked out of Twitter. It's like.
Okay, let's start on a real topic.
Then he lost his bank account. Then he got kicked out. Then he got locked out of Instagram. Then he got locked out of Twitter. It's like.
Yeah.
This kind of says where the parameters are. What's the line you can't cross? Everybody knows it's true.
Has Nick ever like done the SATs?
Have the ultimate power. And that's not even anything hateful. I don't want people to label me as anti-Semitic. I'm already canceled, but that's just true. They have ultimate control and power, and they will abuse it if they need.
Ultimate control and power. I'm not anti-Semitic. It's just the Jews have ultimate power. That's all.
to protect their
Okay.
agenda.
Yeah, I mean, there's no use arguing that one.
What's the
We
agenda?
saw it happen in front of our eyes with the Kanye
Jesus, nothing to argue. Nothing to argue. Oh, okay.
bank situation. It's like, I mean, I don't know if he's going to end up regretting
that one is wild.
having said that shit or what, but I
No, he's not.
mean,
he's a genuine person. I think it's good that he's starting this conversation because, like, me and Nick try to have it, but we only have a limited level of power. The fact that
Uh-huh.
the most famous artist of all time and a billionaire is saying it is like good. Now people are going to start turning their heads to this.
because this is the thing. I look down upon it, but there are a lot of fucking people out there who do not like Jewish people, and Kanye really is the first person I can pretty much think of in terms of like major celebrities to
Nick
come out and really take that stance that you know that a lot of people would say behind closed doors.
Is that brave? I'm sorry. Is that brave? Why did that guy say that? Like he. Okay. 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 Okay.
The fact that he did it, because he really sees himself as like the vanguard that's going to say the things that nobody else will say.
He says that black people can't never be anti-Semitic because we are Jews. That's what Kanye said.
Yeah, now
The battery in his back.
Yeah. Now you're stuck with like me and kind of these idiots.
I definitely think Kanye is wrong.
I'll admit I'm not in the upper echelons, but I at least like talking with people, and this is and have some perspective. Like I don't like. I just the idea that you'd be like, I respect that he says that like other people hold anti-Semitic views and he's open about it. Like that's worthy of respect for you. Got it. I'd like to think I sound reasonable. Thank you, Rye. I appreciate that.
And who was saying that black folks are the original Jews, you know, and all type of hotep shit. Yeah.
Damn. But what does
Yeah,
it
that
even
comes
mean?
from
Dude, the Hotep shit's fucking wild. I don't really know that much about it, but that shit is fucking wild.
He's talked to Ye, and he's talked to Nick Cannon and these other guys, and yeah, I don't subscribe to the Black Hotep stuff, but you know, and Ye is coming at it from a position of credibility too. I mean, a lot of people are so quick to have this allergic reaction to anybody talking about Jews, but it's like if anybody knew.
It's no way I'm insane. Most sane people person on Twitch right here.
Music period, but he's also one of the biggest guys in streetwear period, and he's like. He's talked about for years that he's interested in business and he wants to do.
I can't imagine what Nick thinks about streetwear.
Different kinds of things, and it's like so. If anybody would know, he's been at the White House. Wouldn't it be him of all people? Because, and the point being is, whenever you talk about Jews, people say, "Well, there's something wrong with you. Like you're like a sick individual."
I always love like the hey, this person's good at like 5 things. Maybe they know about this other thing they've never mentioned before, or like. It's always this weird, like, if you're good at one thing, you can be good at, like, everything meme, which I've never understood. I'm like, guys, no, like, fucking doctor is, like, going to roll into, like, my kitchen and be like, well, you know, I'm a fucking surgeon. I think I can figure out, like, how to, like, cook a good burger and the rest of that shit. We all understand that not everybody, like, your talents are rather compartmentalized. Like, fucking stupid.
Or you're insane, or you're a grifter, and it's like you look at Ye, who's clearly none of those things. Like he's rich.
He's clearly going through a mental fucking breakdown.
I don't think
he's been on a
so.
mental breakdown for 6 years.
He's going through a mental breakdown, and then he's got a bunch of right-wing grifters like Candace Owens who got the battery in his back. He's just going out there to people like Nori who have never heard them, and he's just reiterating right-wing talking points that Candace is feeding him. And anybody who's watched her can see it transparently.
Candace Owens not talking
Married
about
to a Jew, right?
Candace is
Candace
smart enough to
Owens
not say that
works
shit
for a
publicly,
Jew.
but I'm sure he has all kinds of sources for his ideas at this point.
No, I think it's just him working in all types of industries and seeing. If you work in the music industry, you know every single drill rapper has a Jewish guy behind him, and they profit off of murder. In every single industry, if you look at the end.
Every single. So, you know what I'm actually kind of surprised of? You know what I'm actually kind of surprised about? You know who nobody's brought up in this entire Kanye kerfluffle stuff? You know who nobody ever mentions? Drake. Where the fuck is Aubrey in all of this? Like, Drake, the #1 rapper in the world, let's be clear, like, in terms of at least music positioning, like on charts and everything else, Kanye is lower than Drake on the bar right now. But like the fact that I've never heard like Drake's name even been mentioned in all this nonsense is incredibly interesting. Because this guy's gonna talk about like, well, everyone knows like every drill rapper has like a Jewish guy behind him that like runs a label or something. It's like, oh, okay. Okay. Jewish people own businesses. Got it. Sure. Even though it's like not every one of them does, and most of them are going to be managed by the same groups. It's almost like, you know, there's monopolizations in the management industry. It's almost like the music industry is shit.
End of the rabbit hole, it's always a Jew who controls it. Real
Everybody
estate,
who has a
who
chance to is profiting off of murder in the
Okay,
entertainment industry.
All right, but that besides the point, Adam.
You're saying
Behind the
the label owners, the people behind
the
the
label
scenes.
owners, the real estate owners, like all the people with the most amount of money behind the scenes is a Jewish guy.
Do you think he's done? Do you think he's done like the research to find that all the people understand? That's also the thing. He's going to say I don't. He's going to say all the people who own everything, and then when you push him, he's going to say, okay, maybe not all, but most. And it's just like, obviously you don't actually fucking think this, or you're fucking stupid. Like, it's either that or you're fucking stupid. Like, obviously you don't think everything's owned, but they say all because deep down that's what they feel. They feel like Jewish people own everything because they've met Jewish people that own shit. Like,
give the power, that same power, to his people. And so he's talking about the fact that, look, why are we out here slaving away for Jews who are propping off of us killing each other?
Yo,
And he's been saying this for years. Even before this, you say, well, he's in the midst of a mental breakdown. He's been talking about this stuff.
It's
since
weird that they always
2013.
come to the
He was
Jews.
on the Breakfast Club in 2013. He said,
but I guess it's like kind of like it's like a
And then the ADL came after
historical,
him and said, that's anti-Semitic, that's
like,
anti-Semitic.
I guess it's kind of like a historical trope that like once it starts, it kind of just always becomes the default explanation because you can go back so far into history to like explain why it's always the Jews' fault.
Finance,
like with the blood
Hollywood,
libel and shit like that.
They're overly represented in university, 1,200%. 1,200% more Jews in Ivy League universities than in the American population. So it's a factual statement.
Is that
but
because affirmative action helps them get more placement?
Well, no. Well, number one, no. And that's neither here nor there because it's a factual statement. You could say, well, why is it? But it's true. And he got called anti-Semitic by a Jewish group. You could say, well, they're more overrepresented for one reason or another reason, but they are overrepresented. They have connections. And Ye said, blacks need connections like Jewish people have connections. Factual statement. And the ADL, which is Jewish, says, you're anti-Semitic. You need to apologize. You're a terrible person. And Farrakhan backed him up.
The ADL is Jewish.
It's just that
Every person in the ADL, it's part of the requirements to work there. You must be Jewish.
He said in the interview, he said, he didn't want to split apart his family because obviously to say these things, he said he was living in a glass prison where he's up there, he's elevated, he's got.
Look at me more like Crystal Diamond prison.
To say, even though he's influential and rich and everything, he's still in a prison because there's certain lines he can't cross, and he wanted to hold his family together. And then he said he finally had enough. That was in the Tucker interview.
So, am I the only one who kind of like? So we all understand kind of what being incredibly rich does to your relationship to society. Like when you're rich, what do like incredibly rich people tend to do? They like, you can only buy so many cars, you can only buy so many houses. The next thing, like we've all heard like the nothing is illegal if you have enough money, right? And we all kind of understand that, when you're incredibly rich, after a point, it's not material objects that you're trying to obtain or own or anything like that. Then, when you have so much money, you can buy anything you want. What's the thing you can't buy? Getting out of the rules, right? And it's why like incredibly rich people cheat on their taxes. It's why they hoard their wealth in other countries and hide their money. It's why, stuff like the Epstein stuff ends up happening. Because after you've bought everything you could possibly legally want, what do you do next? You start on the stuff you were never supposed to be able to get. That just like to me, that's all it sounds like. Is Kanye feels that he's made it to a point of wealth, of status, that he doesn't feel like he should be playing within the boundaries of polite society anymore. That he should be that he should be separated from that. Cause like everyone knows like it's not okay to do the anti-Semitic stuff. But in his head, is he not like, I wonder if he thinks, well, I can cheat. I get to cheat on my taxes. Nobody else gets to cheat on my taxes. I get to, do like basically whatever I want. Why can't I do this? Why can't I be anti-Semitic? And that might be you know, why he goes so fucking hard about it, and why you see such pushes by you know, certain people to go through that line and kind of push that line. I don't know. I just kind of thought about that. It's just like, what do you do after you're as rich and influential as somebody like Kanye? You know, when there's nothing left to buy, what are you looking to obtain? And at that point, it's like, I want to be above the law. I want to be above the rules. You know, if somebody was rich enough to buy themselves out of murdering people, you know, like if you could buy a get out of jail free card, don't you think that's what they would, like, rich people would just do? Just be like, fuck it, I'll just buy as many of those as I want. I can go commit whatever fucking crime I want. You know, I can go express any kind of freedom that I want, which isn't good for society. But I don't know. I just kind of I don't know. I just kind of thought about that. I don't know. It just kind of popped in my head. Just ranting, that's all.
So that I would push.
And I think
against.
it's too easy to overwrite something that by saying that he's just he's a bot for Candace Owens, or he's repeating right-wing talking points, and that he's on mental breakdown, or he's insane. I just did a podcast, Adam, with academics 2 days before you, and he said the exact same thing. And I was talking about what Ye was trying to expose before the Drink Champs interview, and he said the same thing. He's clearly off his meds, bipolar. Bro, so he's been off his meds in a bipolar mental manic episode for fucking 6 years. He went to the hospital in 2016 after the Pablo show. So if he's been on a 6-year-long manic episode, that's the longest manic episode ever. And even in that period, he's made billions of dollars.
Me and academics have been paying extremely close attention to Kanye's life for, like, in my case, easily like 20 years. Like, since he first came on the scene. And my honest perspective is that, yes, the stresses of just being unbelievably rich and having his family taken away from him and all these other things are weighing on him to the extent that he's having something that
I don't know what this family taking away shit.
And I think
Like,
it's very convenient that
kind of fucked around and got himself a divorce. I don't know what, that's not, nobody's taking that from you. You did that to yourself.
a lot of these right-wing type people are just there to sort of like slide their narrative in with him. But I mean, you're right. Like, he's been very susceptible to this stuff for a long time. And I realize that when I talk about him like that I'm kind of infantilizing him, I believe is how you say it. Yeah. And, you know, I think that's probably kind of fair, but I feel like he's in like a weakened mental state and that people are taking advantage of it.
Definitely is.
Yeah, I just would disagree with that because, you know, the people around him are not pushing anti-Jewish views. I mean,
Nobody
Candace Owens, yeah, and certainly not Candace Owens, and to some extent, well, here.
Well, Candace Owens does work for Ben Shapiro.
When he put on the MAGA hat, and he went.
It's got to be a bit. Also, she runs defense for him, which.
And Candace Owens, at the time, she works now for Ben Shapiro at Daily Wire.
Like,
at that time,
she runs defense for him, so clearly she doesn't mind.
And so, Candace Owens with Charlie Kirk was meeting with Ye, and they were trying to get him to do Brexit conferences and do point stuff. And if you remember, it was in the end of the summer, I think in the beginning of the fall 2018, Kanye said, "I'm done with politics. I'm being used, and I don't like it anymore." So
somehow he figured out the first time.
Saying that he's in a mental health crisis. When he released the album, Ye, I'm bipolar, it's awesome. Even then, he recognized, oh, like Charlie Kirk and Turning Point are using me. He recognized that within months and said, yeah, I'm not really about this. I'm done with politics.
It's because they're both idiots.
And this time, you know, nobody's putting this Jew. You know, you could say that if he was doing Brexit, yeah, that's a Charlie Kirk program. Candace Owens, I believe, like Sneeko said, is married to a Jew. At the minimum, she works for Ben Shapiro, who's a Zionist
married to a Jew. Okay.
Zionist Jew. So it's certainly it's not him, or it's not her, and it's not Scott Adams, who he follows, or Ali Alexander, or any of his other political contacts. It's probably Farrakhan, somebody he's been talking to since 2013 at least.
Yeah, and Farrakhan's kind of a fascist and anti-Semite.
Whenever people talk about Jews, it's convenient to say, oh, well, they're just crazy. Oh, well, people are always rationalizing, looking for an excuse instead of, and this is what I put on my Telegram when it happened. What he said was actually wrong. Are Jews not all over the media industry? Like, is that not true? It is true. And is talking about their influence, is that off limits for everybody in every circumstance? Like, are we not permitted to talk about how many Jews are in media and what their influence might look like and what the implications of that are? Why is that a bad thing?
Well, not to not to cut off the podcast hosts here, but it's pretty simple. When you are, it's one thing to be like pointing this sort of stuff out and kind of I think observing any of it is perfectly that's perfectly fine, perfectly reasonable. But the line is when you begin to make prescriptive determinations based on that. Again, Kanye has not been saying there are individuals who are Jewish who are in charge of this company, X, Y, or Z company. He is saying Jewish people are running this or that company. And the problem with that is that you are making this inherent critique of these industries and these leaders, and you're actively painting them in a negative light and tying that to into their identity of being Jewish. That's the problem.
Why do you have to be crazy to talk about that?
It is interesting how we've been sort of trained to understand this.
Oh my God.
And we all reactively knew that Kanye had officially crossed
Yes.
a line. That
Yes,
nobody
you were
really
told
crossed.
when
And I
you
feel like
went
Rob
to
probably
school
devastated
to get
for-
like the education you clearly did not pay attention to. You were told and you were probably shown Nazi propaganda, which was used to target, demonize, and eventually kill Jewish people. The problem with is begging the question when it comes to the Jewish what's the word, prevalence in media or prevalence in any other industry, is that you are invoking Nazi talking points. Like, that's what the Nazis used to attack the Jews and to stoke fear, hatred, and vitriol towards them in Germany at that time. So it's one thing if you're careful with your words, you point these things out and you make and you give explanations for these sorts of things. It's another when you just leave it at, aren't there too many Jews in charge? Aren't too many Jews at the top of society? Aren't Jews this? Aren't Jews doing that? That's when you get into a problem. And the fact that these guys don't, he knows that he's been told to watch it when it comes to Jewish people, but his like fucking, I don't even know, fucking brainlet brain doesn't seem to understand why he was told that. It's the same reason, like, again, Nick Fuentes is a Holocaust denier, but again, this is why people tell you when you want to bring up critiques of a Jewish culture or anything like that, you do have to be careful because there's a long history that Rye did point out that the blood libel stuff is like 2,000 years old. You've got general anti-Semitism has been around for an incredibly long time. And when you invoke that language, you are actively resurrecting that sort of mindset and movement, which can lead to, and has led to, the Holocaust, and did lead to the Holocaust, I should say.
His career. Yeah, but he said a lot of stuff in the Drink Champs interview that's pretty much like on par with the DEFCON 3 thing, or maybe even crazier. Yeah. But Nick, one thing I was surprised by is because I would have thought of you as being somebody who was like extremely pro-America, but then I read a quote that said that you said that basically Ukraine deserves what they're getting right now from Russia because Ukraine is aligned with America and America is the great Satan.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so I would distinguish between America, which is like you and me and Sneeko and like the people, and like,
What about me and Flacco?
and yeah, and you guys too. So I just don't really know you guys as well.
Funny.
What do you mean by that? What do you mean by that?
The two black guys?
Well, no, I don't know Flacco. AD, I just saw
right.
you recently. But yeah, you guys too. You guys are America, and people like Kanye and Candace Owens,
Revealing.
and John Miller, and everybody.
Revealing.
And I would
They'll say
distinguish
that's a
that from
joke, but
the regime. What I call
is
the
it
regime, what some people call the government, I
the
call
regime?
it the regime, because America isn't just run. The authority in America
Also-
doesn't just come from the government.
Also, the problem with the whole like Jewish thing also is whenever you say they, whenever you say anything, you're also tying a group back to every single thing that could possibly be bad. You're tying like every negative aspect of society to like a specific religion, a specific faith. That's also a big issue. Just wanted to point that out also.
It comes from a true regime in the sense that the government is influenced by the media, and the government influences the media. And the same is true of Silicon Valley, and the same is true of the banks, and the same is true of Wall Street. And really what you have are maybe 5,000 to 10,000 decision makers across many elite institutions that are making decisions inside the government, outside the government, and the government is in bed with private institutions too. They're in bed with the Federal Reserve and the banks and BlackRock and Wall Street and so on.
Not wrong.
Anyway, and so when I talk about
So this is
America's great
always
state-
the like actual true nugget of truth that these guys kind of seize on. Because if you're asking me, the one thing so far that Nick Fuentes is actually correct about is that our government is captured by corporate interests. That is true. Our government is captured by that. Now, the difference between me and Nick Fuentes is I have no interest in, you know, the government is captured by corporate interests, which means when I see actions taken by the government, I notice when they side with corporations, when they don't side with labor, like we saw with Biden earlier. But it kind of underscores a lot of the way the government functions. It's why when the Republicans were in power, all they did was pass tax cuts for the rich. That was the only thing they did that entire time. So, I mean, this nugget of truth is always what guys like Fuentes are going to seize upon, but he's going to take it farther. The thing about his whole Jewish critique is he's taking that to the next step. So it's like, your government's kind of captured by corporate interests. Well, that's a bad thing. Nick, on the other hand, would most likely say, well, yeah, and who do you think runs the corporations? And then he'll be like, so who do you think runs the government? You see, it's a big conspiracy by the Jewish faith or something to import immigrants, to, do whatever weird, to lower wages, to do whatever, when the actual simple explanation when it comes down to these sorts of things are the government has been captured by corporate interests and therefore are much more favorable and interested in what those corporations have in mind, which most of the time ends up being lower taxes and a disinterest by the government in enforcing stronger labor laws and labor protections. That's really it. You notice how, like, the Respect for Marriage Act is going to pass, right? Do you know why that is? Do you want to know why that's passing? Because corporate interests corporations have no interest in gay marriage. None whatsoever. There is nothing interesting to them about that. At the end of the day, if they can market to gay couples, if they can market to straight couples, perfectly fine. As long as they can sell their products. That's the only thing they really care about. But if you ask Nick Fuentes, if you ask Kanye West, they might say, oh, the reason why the Respect for Marriage Act passed was because the cabal of Jewish elites at the top of these corporations influenced our elected politicians to vote in favor of gay marriage because they want to disenfranchise and eliminate traditional marriage because Jewish people are anti traditional marriage and they're pro-abortion, and you see they're trying to erode the Judeo-Christian values of our nations. Like you see how this kind of just keeps turning into like a Dan Brown novel, whereas the alternative is rather simple. Unfortunately, the world and I hate to drop this knowledge bomb on anybody, but like, unfortunately, the world is rather simple. People just do what's in their best interests, and corporations in their best interests is generally sell more product. The more demographics that they can sell to, if they can sell to a straight guy and sell to a gay guy and sell to a gay couple and sell to a straight couple, they'll take all four of those different avenues to make money. That's really as far as it goes. It has nothing to do with marriage. It has nothing to do with eroding the institution of marriage or anything else these people complain about. It's all just brainworms that they have, really.
And Ukraine should be punished in all this. I'm talking about this regime. I think the regime of America is evil. They do regime change in Libya. They do regime change in Iraq. They do regime change in the Balkans.
Oh yeah, Nick Fuentes is so he's like doing like a anti-war. He's having his anti-war art.
Pro-Western leader who is going to invite the European Union and NATO into their country, which Putin
True.
has said for years was a red line for Russia.
Oh right. Nick's pro-Russia. Right. I should have known.
The Maidan Revolution in 2014. There's been this proxy war going on between the separatists in Donbass and the Ukrainian government backed by NATO.
Yeah.
And so when I say the U.S. is a great state, and I mean our military, our State Department, the government, our companies,
Shouldn't this dude be like pro-military?
and multinational corporations, they're spreading sin, they're spreading decadence, they're spreading liberalism, they're spreading evil, death, and destruction all around the world. And so, insofar as
you mean liberalism, like democracy? You mean like that liberal value of democracy? Got it.
Russia is opposed to the hegemony of the American regime, and I am opposed to the American regime, then that sort of makes us allies.
Interesting. So you're hoping that Ukraine gets wiped off the face of the planet, or are you looking forward to nuclear war, or what are you hoping for in this whole thing?
Well,
Nick definitely strikes me as the type of person who thinks they'd survive like a nuclear war and they'd come out like, like fucking, the Lord of the Flies, like on top of the society. Nick, I'd find a locker for you, my friend. Don't worry.
Escalation. I think that the United States.
I'd find a post-apocalyptic locker to shove you in.
It's reciprocal on both sides, and it is going to turn into a nuclear war if there isn't restraint because it just keeps escalating. And so I think the United States needs to.
Russia just keeps losing, really.
Is going to win this war. They can't literally is not allowable.
Are they though?
To lose this war. So
are they going to lose the war?
We need to recognize that Ukraine's not going to win. They're not going to take back Crimea. They're not going to take back Luhansk.
They probably could take back Crimea if they wanted to.
Give it up, like Elon Musk said. Let's hold a UN monitored referendum in the breakaway districts. Let's say Crimea and Donbass are part of Russia. Let's say Ukraine will never join NATO. I think that's a fair resolution.
How so not to get too much into foreign politics here, because I'm not the biggest foreign politics expert, but what the fuck is Ukraine getting out of any of this? So like he'll say that that's like a fair agreement, but like what the fuck is Ukraine getting out of that deal? Like they lose territory in Crimea and the Donbass. They don't get to join NATO. So what? Russia gains 2 portions of land that they annexed, and what? Like none of that was in fate. Like they always try to frame like this, like, well, Ukraine's not going to win, so they kind of have to take a little bit of an L. When it's like, no, there is no evidence that they're not going to win. They've already pushed Russia back from like I think it's Kharkiv, I believe, was the last major city. So no, I don't know what this whole like Ukraine's not doing well nonsense is.
Which is what was sought for 20 years.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it does seem pretty crazy seeing everybody say that the risk of nuclear war is so much higher right now. But I mean, it's still a long way to go before we actually see Putin feel like he has to make that move, right?
Yeah. It's the good thing is after Putin annexed those territories, the United States didn't really retaliate. So I thought that was sort of a good sign. But they blew up those pipelines, they blew up the bridge connecting Russia and Crimea. So there's just there's just no restraint here. There needs to be some restraint.
Nick, there's one thing that I know these guys definitely want to hear you talk about. Why are you celibate?
Well, the easy answer is
oh wait, he's a virgin? Oh, that's funny.
Yes.
So you are a virgin at this time?
Yes.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah, so I think that
what a cool guy.
Morally illicit sex is within marriage, which is how it was for thousands of years.
Wait, huh? Wait. The institution of marriage did not exist for thousands of years. The institution of like couples pairing together, maybe, but not marriage. Marriage is more like humans have been around quite a long time. We've been having sex. Like, does he know that like the original people, like the original humans, were not getting married and then having sex? They were just having sex, and then that's how we got here. Like, only through premarital sex did our species grow to be what it is.
Also, I'm just sort of I'm like an
loser.
What you understand about me is I'm like an eccentric genius.
Loser.
I mean, not only do I not only
a loser
because it's like the right thing to do, but also I'm just not really interested in
a loser.
He can't connect to normies on that level.
What's that?
No, he's anti-porn.
No, I'm anti as well.
Don't need porn.
Dude, this dude, dude.
You're on permanent semen retention.
So, this dude definitely jerks off a lot. 200%.
Well, I want to get married eventually. I'm gonna get
so you're
married
saving all
eventually.
your jizz for your future wife?
That's right. Yeah. Well,
Nick, how old are you?
I have kids. I'm 24.
Oh, he's a kid.
That's what I couldn't believe.
24. Jeez. Wait. Like, why did people follow this guy?
Bro, like,
why? Why would you be following this guy?
I'm thinking he's fucking 37 years old. And what the hell?
Man, that's really not a compliment that they think you're 37 years old and you're an incel.
It's crazy.
I'm not a Nazi.
Come
Well,
on,
ish, like in that ballpark.
I'm a nice guy. And the
He's a
thing is,
Nazi.
like,
He's a nice
when I
Nazi.
put this on my Telegram, I want what's right for the country. I want to tell the truth, and the truth is uncomfortable. Like,
What's right for the country means what he thinks is right for the country.
Sounds fun.
Yeah, and that would be very easy for me to be a liberal. I was a libertarian when I was in high school.
Cringe.
But I just realized the world is a certain way, and I wish it weren't that way. Like, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but like, inequality is baked into the cake. That's sad. It's tragic in a lot of ways, but that's a human condition. And
Unfortunately, this is one of those cases where, like, I've heard people like try to use like the look, man, like not everyone's always gonna be equal, da 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 da. And it's like, sure, but like the entire project of like a society, of community, of any of those sorts of things is to address those inequalities. Like that's the entire point of building a society, is to equalize as many people as you possibly can. If not, there's no point in having in building a society. Like, then we should all just go out into the woods and fend for ourselves. Nick won't last very long, but like, I mean, like when it comes down to it, it just feels like these people don't want to live in society, which is fine, man. I'm not gonna force you to, but like, you gotta go somewhere. Like, you gotta go somewhere. You gotta figure something out. You either gotta be okay with like people who you don't feel should be equal to you being equal, or you need to go fuck off into the woods and somewhere that isn't a state or like another nation. Just go figure that out for yourself. Go find it. Go find an island. Go find an island and go create your completely what's the word? Probably Ayn Randian community there. Go build it in the ocean for all I care. But like, it's like you just don't want to live in a society.
I think that the answer is compassion. The answer is compassion and understanding and respect and love for people. But we have to tell the truth, because the world is going crazy right now. The world's going to shit. Things are obviously
The truth.
declining. And the only way
What's the truth?
around is if we have some common sense and just call it what it is. And sometimes it makes people uncomfortable and it sounds a certain way. And I know I'm belligerent. I can be belligerent, can be offensive sometimes. And
We need to follow
provocative.
God overall. Everything is better aligned if we follow God. Nick, I just left Adam 22's studio, and that dude has a lot of Satan shit up in there, man. You got to go ahead and
he's
Oh wait, is Sneeko like a god guy? Oh, that's fucking cringe.
Somebody sent that to me.
Why do you have tattoos? Shouldn't you like not have tattoos?
Satan tattoo on his hand. He's got an upside down cross tatted on his face.
I got trust God on my knuckles, man. I ain't with that.
You got an iPod tattoo.
I do too.
Yo, I need tattoos. Yo, Nick, Ken.
You look like Rick Ross.
I didn't realize Sneeko was like a god stan. That's fucking cringe.
White liberals. So pretty much like the same people 60 years ago, and who was telling us that, yo, it's their cafe, and like they can kick you out, because you're black, and that's perfectly fine. Those are the same motherfuckers telling us now, yo, it's their platform. They can kick you off if they don't like your opinion, man. Now, what's your opinion on white liberals? I believe that they're our number one enemy.
You're like repeating his talking points back at him.
Who, Nick?
And it
No,
just
hell
sounds like,
no.
yeah, you are. It sounds less racist. No one's going to call you a Nazi for saying the same shit that Nick said.
I've never heard Nick say that. Go ahead, Nick. Sorry.
True, yeah, because I would say it's Jews. I wouldn't say it's white liberals.
No.
Look at that. It's almost like it. It's almost like it always comes back to the Jews. If you're a bad white person, you're probably Jewish. It just always comes back to the Jews. That's all it ever comes back to.
Or definitely the devil.
Here's why, though, because if you look at white liberals, and at least the radical, and when we're talking about white, I mean white, ACLU and
I mean white.
other
What is
leftists,
white?
they used to defend free
I
speech.
still
Like
never heard what
ACLU,
white
the
is.
Civil Liberties Union, they're a left group, but they defended the skinheads in Skokie, Illinois, when the neo-Nazis or the Ku Klux Klan wanted to do a parade.
Right.
in
Switch their
Illinois.
whole shit up, and nobody fucking talks about it. Yeah.
Right.
Not that I support that, obviously, but it's like they were left.
He does.
Defended free speech, and now,
Yeah.
The
It's free
urge
speech.
for censorship is really coming from the Jewish left, and it's not saying that there aren't white.
The Jewish left. Yes, like me. Known. No, you're right. As a leftist, I probably should. I probably should let you guys know that I am a card-carrying member of the Jewish left. I have it over there. It's right next to my DSA card. But just to let you guys know that I don't know if that was, maybe that, we all kind of get it when we start these leftist Twitch channels.
So you want to change our way of life?
Like, oh, I mean, mean, they are. I
What
mean,
do they want to change our
ADL,
way of life to?
Liberal,
They wanna have all the money.
international,
Nah, hold on.
multicultural.
None of that means
Say that
anything.
again, Stigo? Sorry.
Huh?
Say that again, please. Sorry.
I said they want to further a globalist agenda. They want to continue their power, and they want to keep most of the wealth for themselves.
What did that even mean? What did that mean? I'm really tired of hearing I've heard globalist agenda my entire life. I have no idea what it fucking means. Because it never has a definition. You just say globalism, you just say globalist, and that's the last thing you have to say. It never makes any fucking sense. It's just whatever thing you don't like, that's globalist. Did your shoes not fit today when you put them on? Globalism.
Globalism benefits the Jews.
Shit,
Yes.
hey, man.
I mean, I don't
Again,
know. I need a fact check because I'm not prepared to debate that particular part of this argument. But whatever.
I hope I don't. What are they going to take now?
No, for sure. I just feel like I should be
Your
able to
freedom
offer
next.
some kind of rebuttal to that, but I don't really know. I'm not.
Base Joe Biden's gonna come and take that entire streamer setup of yours.
The other side or whatever. The thing is like there is no voice for the side. That's to me what's peculiar. Because the thing is, I wasn't much different.
What are you talking about, Nick? There was a voice less than 100 years ago. It was called the National Socialist Party in Germany.
He was 12.
Yeah, literally, when I was 12, that's when I read Milton Friedman, Free to Choose, and I became real libertarian and everything. And I grew up in a normal, working class household. Like I said, neither of my parents went to college. I'm like an American ethnic. I have no WASP DNA. You know, I'm Catholic.
I'm so confused why this dude is the dude leading the white supremacist movement in America. At least the youth half of the white supremacist movement.
Israel.
What?
And yeah, big time.
You?
And, yeah, I was even going to work for Ben Shapiro at one point at Daily Wire. And what
Probably
happened
should have.
was, you know, well, the big thing to me, I was actually defending Obama, believe it or not, in 2016. And I told the story.
Obama, 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 Obama.
Yeah, in December 2016, he didn't veto a Security Council resolution condemning Israel because, you know, Israel is doing these civilian settlements in the West Bank, and the international community condemns it. Technically, the United States, it's against our policy too since 1967. And so Obama didn't veto this resolution condemning them. And all the conservatives, and I was a Zionist conservative too, they were all like, oh, you're an anti-Semite because you didn't. And I said, wait a second. I'm like, Israel's going against our own foreign policy. Obama just abstained from voting. Why is that our obligation to serve them? And they said, well, you're anti-Semitic for asking that. And I said, what? I'm like, that doesn't even make any sense. I'm like, that's no different than
Holy
talking about
shit, we found something that Nick Fuentes is actually kind of right about, which is that the American support for Israel is fucking stupid. Wow. We found one other ounce of honesty and actually reasonable take so far.
Islamophobic. How is this any different?
Funny
And they
thing
said,
though,
well,
that's
you
actually a
can't ask
leftist
it.
critique.
Why is there so much foreign aid to Israel? Why are there so many, you know, Jewish people in media? And they said, well, you can't ask that. If you ask that, we're going to stop talking.
See, the
to you.
thing
And
is
then they
like
did.
if you're a
I was
leftist,
talking
you
to
just
girls
go,
in college,
it's
Catherine
bad
Miller,
because they're
and
fascist and they
she
want to
worked
create an
for
ethno
Wire,
state.
and I was asking her,
It has
why
nothing to
did
do
they
with them
write
being
the
Jewish.
year?
It has
Why
everything
did
to
they write the
do
Kuwait
with
memo in 1994, which was
ethno states and
basically the
fascists
plans for
being
the
bad.
Iraq War 9 years before it happened, and so on. And she was a good friend of mine. She got me my show. I started my show because of her. And she texted me at one point and said, Nick, we're not in the same movement anymore. You're an anti-Semite. You're working on everything. And then for months, she would watch my show every night and call my boss.
This dude is really triggered.
Said this, Nick just said that. You need to fire him. You need to take him off the air. She was sending things for my show to Media Matters. Media Matters is like one of the big left-wing, like hands.
Oh, I love Media Matters. Media Matters has been around, I think, quite a long time actually. But love Media Matters.
To smear me when I was 18, when I was a kid. And I was like, okay, so obviously it's legit. I mean, that doesn't prove it's legit, but it's a pretty good heuristic that it's like, if you're asking a question and instead of getting a persuasive rebuttal, they just cancel you. That's, again, it doesn't prove it's true, but it's a pretty good heuristic that it probably has some legitimacy.
Now, unfortunately,
that's how people say,
this is the thing. While Nick Fuentes' accurate critique that American support for Israel is cringe, unfortunately, his is because they're Jewish, and mine is because they're fascists. It's not really, you know, it's a very big difference. One is based on religion, the other is based on actions.
Like this twisted freak or like, oh, you know, there's something wrong with you, you're a grifter. It's like I believed a lot of fashionable things, and then based on experience and based on reading, I realized
Fashionable.
and then I go out and say it, and then I get shunned, And then I come on here and Adam says, well, I've never heard this before. I don't know how to rebut that. It's like,
because he just heard the talking points that make him seem like a bad person because they try to censor the truth.
Well,
and I think
saying,
that if we,
when you cite specific studies or whatever, it's like, okay, well, I'm not going to be able to rebut that because I'm not directly familiar.
Well, yeah, because you can always cite studies on random shit.
I'm sure that there's going to be people
Like,
calling into question certain
at the end of the day, you can always find something that'll give you the number you're looking for.
I've learned this from being canceled. It's not what you say, it's how you say it. It's Nick's general attitude is the fact that he's smart. He threatens the government. He threatens everything that the liberal agenda is about. And they just need to...
The liberal agenda.
When I first had him on my stream, everybody was saying, no, no, no. I had him on, I thought he was cool. And later on my Discord, everyone was saying, no, 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 he's a bad person, white supremacist. But I'm like, I talked to him and he seems fine.
I talked to him. He totally didn't say anything white supremacy.
And I think that if we move into the right direction, I genuinely right here, I'm endorsing it. I think someone like Nick Fuentes
Oof.
will win the presidency in 20 years.
Cringe.
If America does not fall apart,
Cringe.
then I think he has the capability.
Cringe.
He believes in America. I think he believes in the people.
Cringe.
I think he cares about the right thing.
Okay, so Sneako's a dumb fuck.
He's also a good speaker. People can follow
Okay,
him.
so we've kind of established that already, but clearly dumb fuck.
At the same time, I do have to admit the rabbit hole is real because if it wasn't for you and Destiny being cordial enough to sit down with Nick, then I would not have thought of him as being, somebody who is safe.
So when people critique Destiny for platforming, this is kind of the big critique, is that because he sat there and let Nick spew off a bunch of nonsense, now this rando hip-hop culture sports dipshit here now has Nick Fuentes on his 4 million subscriber platform, and now Nick's reached a bigger audience.
Which obviously you guys can tell that's like part of my concern here. I've had a lot of people reaching out saying that I'm fucking crazy for even having Nick on the show. But at the end of the day, I think we should be able to have conversations.
At the end of the day, he knows that it would bring in the views, and views equal money, so...
Great. There's a really good chance this is not going to make it.
That part might have to get censored, which is a real shame because then where does that content go? Maybe that goes on the No Jumper Rumble.
Yeah, maybe, because Holocaust denial is kind of one of those things that people have decided, nope, we're not going to have any of that.
If you want to keep up your channel, I would be careful.
Does Destiny make you be careful about what you'll talk about when you stream with him? He won't let you
No,
talk
Destiny's
about
fine
COVID
because Destiny's a federal, he's a Fed agent liberal, so he's able to say whatever he wants with Nick because he disagrees.
That's true. Destiny is a Fed.
If you agree with him at any point, right now I see you guys listening to him. Nick's making some good points. That's going to get you in trouble.
That's depressing.
The show can stay up. But I gotta get going.
That's depressing if you think Nick makes good points.
Destiny's posture is aggressive enough that's why they don't feel like they have to take it down is because he's arguing with him a lot.
I think it.
Well, yeah, if you're pushing back, then it's all about how you platform somebody.
Specifically, I didn't see what was flagged. I don't watch all of his streams to know necessarily, but with Destiny, I would say that it's because we never really talked about COVID. I think that's probably a part of it. Because with YouTube, there's specific things that you're not allowed.
The COVID stuff will get you clapped up.
You can't talk about COVID, and those are two things I don't know that we've ever talked about. But yeah, I think it does have a lot.
Mainly because the COVID stuff is seen as dangerous for public safety and public health.
You're answering it insofar as you're like you said aggressively combating it. Then they don't consider that like advocacy, which is kind of fucked up. That YouTube gets to decide. Oh, this is your opinion. You don't get to have a YouTube. Oh, you disagree with that?
Yeah.
Okay, then you're fine.
Yeah. That's kind of how it works because YouTube owns the platform that you're uploading content on. They own the algorithm that gets you an audience. They own kind of all of that stuff. So yes, that is true. They do get to say we don't want this on our website. That is true. That that is true in that sense.
If
YouTube's not an open forum, open or public forum, I should say. It's a private institution.
If that's how it was. Right. You can't say this thing, but they're adjudicating. Well, this guy doesn't.
Also, they sell ad space, so this sounds like a beef with capitalism.
It is such a weird feeling to be having a conversation with somebody, and normally the only stuff that I'm thinking of in terms of stuff we can't show on camera is boobs and maybe somebody doing drugs or something. There's not that many things we really have to avoid having on camera. So it's weird to be having a conversation where I'm like, no, this idea that he's saying right here is potentially enough to get.
Well, yes, because drugs are not harmful. Somebody watching somebody do drugs, not very harmful. Somebody watching boobies, not really harmful. Somebody watching somebody spread anti-Semitic talking points, kind of harmful. The spreading of propaganda is not good and is harmful to society.
This video removes very strange feeling I've never really had before.
Yeah, man. Yo, listen, Nick.
Never engaged with a controversial idea, I guess.
Yeah, how you feel about him?
Wait, so first off, did you guys have a debate at some point or a conversation on air?
No, we've never talked.
Wait, so I think he said during like my like interview, and he was spanking one of like your friends or somebody associated with you, and then like they got to trolling. Yeah. So like, what's your like your opinion on our good friend Tariq Nasheed?
Honestly, I'm not the biggest fan. I just think that
I have no idea who this person is, so we're gonna skip ahead.
Nah, yo, Nick. So like, what's your take on against black folks receiving reparations?
Amazing.
I'm against it.
Why?
Naturally.
Because I think that I'll grant that the institute. First of all, I'll say, in case you guys don't like, if this needs to be said, I'm against slavery. Okay, I'm against the chattel slavery of black people.
Sure.
Without saying, but just in case, because you guys are, saying I'm a Nazi or white supremacist, I'm against that.
Well, actually, no. Now that I think about it, Nick's probably not lying in that he's not in favor of slavery. He's probably more just in favor of non-race mixing, which not slavery, but is it really that much different? Like, if you're like, oh, look, I'm not in favor of slavery. I just think that black people and white people shouldn't be allowed to legally procreate. That's all. That's kind of a difference without a distinction, really.
Okay, good. I just want to let you know explicitly. I think that there's a lot of historic injustices and wrongdoings, and you could say that slavery was bigger, like more particular, but it's just like, who's going to pay for it? You back down the slave owners' descendants and take the money from them and give it to the descendants of the slaves?
No, you just do it through taxes.
It's horrible.
It's actually really easy.
It's a horrible wrongdoing, which...
Actually, we have a lot of infrastructure to track that sort of information also.
We're enslaved, of course. But where does that start and where does that end? I mean, do you go to Africa and do you hold the people that sold them into slavery accountable? I just feel like...
No, there's no accountability. Like, the thing is there's no accountability mechanism. You just pay people out through taxes, basically. It's really not that hard. I don't know what this is of holding anybody accountable. We're not gonna go to like the ancestors and be like, hey, you need to pay like 2% of your wages for the rest of your life, and your family has to do that until a certain cap is met, and then that that's how black people get the reparation. No, it's just most likely like a one-time payment or something like that through like tax dollars. Just do it through taxes. It's not that hard.
Argument it's impractical. I don't understand how it's gonna work, or are you against it if they could figure it out?
I'm also against it in principle because the people that they would be robbing, the people they'd be stealing from to pay,
which would be
at some point it involves the government is going to take money from some people and give it to other people, and that's
what the government does every single day, every single time. Every single time you pay taxes, it's going to somebody else. Understand that. That's how taxes work. You pay in to being part of the society, and that money gets distributed to people who are not you. You get the money that somebody else then paid into the system that then goes to you. That's kind of how taxes and tax distribution works.
We're going to give it to somebody else because of what their ancestors suffered. So in principle, I'm opposed to it.
Well,
yeah, I'm not an FBA, so I'm not getting any coins. Like, do you want to?
I don't know about that.
Buy back or no?
Wait, so you think AD would be a recipient and you wouldn't be?
Yeah, I definitely would be a recipient.
Yeah, I wouldn't since I'm not.
I mean, our people was brought to this country, you know what I'm saying, like forcefully at the end of the day. So
right.
I mean, I do feel like you said there's a lot of injustice.
There's a debt owed. Considering we did not do enough during Reconstruction. There was also like, what was it, 40 acres and a mule that was never paid out to black people after the Civil War. So there's also that.
Still like trying to recover. We're still getting our, we still ain't got our just due when it comes down to that. And I do feel like my people should get our reparations.
And that's probably the thing that people really want to know about how Nick really thinks is when you say, oh, black people are always fighting on airplanes or whatever, do you think that
every time I've ever seen a fight on an airplane, it's been a black person? Totally.
In terms of
never seen anybody else do it before.
Do you think that that's the truth because there's something in the soul of a black person that just makes them violent, which I think a lot of people would find that to be the offensive explanation, and most people would assume you to have that opinion, right?
Well, I wouldn't say it's your soul, but when we're talking about behavior, the question is you've got these behaviors, criminality, and if you want to say pugilism, fighting is a behavior, and so the question would be if black. So also
let's remember criminality. There is not a universal standard for what is criminality and what is not criminality. There's no universal standard for what is criminal and what's not criminal. It's all lines drawn by your society. If your society draws the line that being black while in a white institution is illegal, then guess what? You've committed a crime. Does that mean that the actual moral value of the crime committed means anything? No, it has nothing to do with that. So keep that in mind.
Behaving in a different way than white people generally. Why is that? What would you attribute that to? And the explanation for all of it, all the disparities between blacks and white people, liberals say, is injustice. It's racism. It's bigotry, because they assume that white people and black people in a vacuum are going to behave exactly the same, perform exactly the same, have the same capacity and faculties and so on. And so if they wind up in a different place, well, something had to happen.
So yeah, I mean, the idea would be if
discrimination.
everybody was in the same type of neighborhoods, then everyone would do. If you're in like a better neighborhood, you'll do better, which is bears out pretty well when you look at educational statistics of people who might be of different races but go to the same schools, live in the same neighborhoods. They have similar outcomes.
Racism, they were brought up the wrong way, educated the wrong way, and I would say that it's wrong to assume that behavior is not genetic. Behavior, as we know, is genetic. Sociopathy, antisocial behavior, there is a strong heritability for those kinds of things. And so there's a lot of different hypotheses about what gene is it necessarily or whatever, but we do know that antisocial behavior is genetic. Can it also be environmental? Certainly. But we also know that people have a temperament. Some people, it's just not in their temperament to fight. Would you say that's because they were taught that? We all know, because if you know children, some children like to fight, some children don't. Is it because they were taught that? Sometimes it's brothers and sisters by the same parents in the same school, have a different nature. And we could say nature is said another way, they have a different genetic makeup. And so I would say that, yeah, I think that
Wait, how you're brought up? Wait. How you're brought up is nurtured, dumbass. Not okay. Sorry for that outburst. That's sorry.
2021 it was actually 60%.
It's not how nature and nurture work.
I think because there is a genetic basis for their behavior. And Africans lived in Africa for thousands and thousands of years
and broke laws in Africa the entire time.
Behave and think and be exactly the same as groups, to me, is somewhat ridiculous. So yeah, I think that, there's a cultural aspect, sure, but I also think there's a genetic aspect too.
Nick,
it's not their soul; it's genetics.
Nick, I can grow up where you grew up, and I'll probably be just like you. You know what I mean? I'll be a whole totally different person. And a lot of these, a lot of black people, and you say that commit all the crimes, that do all this stuff like that. Like, there's liquor stores on every corner where we come from. You know what I mean? There's guns being, conspiracy over there. There ain't even really no conspiracy and stuff. It's easier for me to get a gun illegally than it is to be legally at the end of the day. And there's a lot of it's a lot. The school systems are more fucked up. Like everything.
Oh, also when schools have metal detectors and police all the time, always around, you end up criminalizing kids at such a young age that there's no way for them to not be criminals. They can't participate in society with enough of a leeway to go about their lives. How many white kids smoke weed in high school and don't ever get talked to, compared to how many black kids in urban areas and in cities end up are like smoking weed or whatever during in the same years. But notice one of them might get caught, the other one was just going to go to their house, smoke in the what's the word, in like the garage or something. I had friends who smoked weed in high school, and all they did was go to their garage and like smoke in there, like open the garage door to let the smoke out and everything. But nobody ever batted an eye. And this is when they went to the they were in like kind of the nicer suburbs. But if you went over to the much more working class, much lower class neighborhoods, you don't have anywhere. You don't have like what's the word? You don't have a garage to smoke in. You don't have a place to go. So what do? You end up just smoking in like the local park or, wherever is kind of a secluded area. And guess what? The cops already know that that's what you're doing. And then you get arrested, you get picked up, or, you get the talking to and everything else. And now you're a criminal, even though all you did was do the exact same thing that the white kids did in their garages in their nice little suburban neighborhoods that nobody spends time outside in. So nobody ended up catching you smoking weed. Like, the dealers in my fucking neighborhood were the rich white kids. Those were who the dealers fucking were. But nobody ever looks there because that's not the place where they culturally think they're going to find law-breaking behavior. It's the place that they're like, well, obviously that's not, to them that's not where it's happening. It's a bias. It's almost like the system might be a bit biased.
When it comes down to that. And I think like now, you know, you said something earlier that, you know, black people, our issues get put to the top of the list now versus white people, correct?
Yeah.
He said yeah.
Oh, okay. No, but yeah, I feel like a lot of things is location. A lot of things is a lack of opportunity at the end of the day. I mean, even if you look at like something like Section 8, you know what I'm saying? It's like you can't have a man in the household, you know what I mean? Or with Section 8. So, I mean, a lot of these kids are growing up without fathers, without father figures in their system. I mean, in the neighborhoods and stuff like that. And there's a lot of situations, bro, that we can sit there and break down to why a lot of crime.
You could add a lot of context. See, this is the difference. This is the thing. You can add a lot of context and explain how these numbers are what they are. And you can kind of explain as to how the numbers get to be where they are. But, or like Nick does, you can bring flashy statistics and flashy averages and leave it at that and let people's intuition do all of the work. When you have no perspective, you don't have to worry about any of those contexts.
Cultural and environmental explanations for it, but notice that liberals say it's just that. They refuse to even entertain the idea that there's a genetic basis for
because you would have to prove a genetic difference. You would have to have a proven genetic difference, like reason for that sort of thing.
About Section 8, about you know, the incentive structure by these government programs, about food deserts and things. That's all true. You know, but at the same time,
I'm glad Nick recognizes that everything that like leftists say is are the reasons are true and factual, and everything he says are statistically factual, and that's kind of it.
What do you make of the race and IQ thing? Do you think that there's a disparity in IQ? And he skipped over that and said, well, here's why there is. He never said there is, but he believes it all the same. He believes there's a disparity in IQ. IQ is heritable, and IQ is also something that's a predictor. It's the best predictor of future success. If you look at
IQ, if you're not aware, IQ also has been found to be rather biased in terms of its like questions. So when you give a kid who goes to a shitty school an IQ test, they are going to perform worse than a child in a great school in like, you know, some, you know, high-end school or whatever. Like the IQ tests are not these benchmarks that we kind of see them as. It's why IQ doesn't really get discussed as often, just because IQ's not really a great measurement of people's intelligence, because there's too many extra factors that go into that. Like your IQ, if you take an IQ test, that is going to be wildly skewed based on the education level that you got. Like if you never learn how to spell certain words, this is a very basic example, you do poorly on it, and it would say, oh, you're like, you know, Nick Fuentes will go, see, you scored lower on your English portion, you're obviously bad at English. But that has nothing to do with your inherent ability to understand English. It has everything to do with what you were taught and what you have access to.
People, and you take a cross section of a lot.
Most likely, I'm assuming that's what Destiny brought up.
The best predictor of their success is IQ, as opposed to environmental things, other factors.
Right, and their IQ is based on environment along with other things. Again, this is when he wants to stop at the thing that he's obsessed with and the talking point that he wants to push. You could explain IQ as these other things and then go from IQ and explain this is why. You know, you could make the argument that like, hey, the best predictor for success is based on IQ, which itself is based on all of these other factors. Therefore, if we fix all of these other factors, IQs will improve. Therefore, outcomes will improve. But no, when it's Nick Fuentes, you know, in his mind, he wants it to stop the minute you get to IQ and not explain any of that. He does not want that stuff to be fixed. The problem he has with the context is that that can be changed. And that's what he doesn't want. He doesn't want that to have the ability to change.
That's not a perfect one-to-one, but it's the best one. And IQ is a genetically heritable trait. And so he would say, well, your IQ is formed by your environment. Your behavior is formed by your environment. Everything's formed by your environment. What we're finding out with modern science is that so much is genetic. And I don't like that. It's uncomfortable. It's sad. It's
untrue.
It's inequality. But it is real. And if you want to understand how to help people and how to make things better,
modern science. I'd love to know what modern science he's talking about.
You know, you're just, they victim of circumstance or something like this. So, because I agree with you, those things are all adverse, obviously, but nobody will hear out the case that maybe we're not all starting from the same place to begin. There's a lot of evidence.
The problem is here's the problem with his assertion also is there's no way to verify any of that. You just are taking stats, taking measurements that we already have, and we have contextual understanding of those, and you're decoupling them from those explanations. Like there's nothing, like, you know, you can't explain any of like the IQ stuff because you can't measure any of that until somebody's gotten a certain amount of education. Like it's not falsifiable. There's just nothing. There's nothing there. You can't prove any of this shit. You only can prove it by rejecting more evidence.
So you're saying genetically black people are more angrier, or you know, we have a gene in us to commit more crimes. Was your logic correct?
Well, it's that they're more antisocial and a higher incidence of sociopathy.
Imagine thinking black people are more antisocial.
You look at
Nick Fuentes has clearly never been to a family cookout before.
Sub-Saharan Africa.
How are you gonna say that? We have most of the vast resources from Africa.
It was also colonized by everybody in Europe.
Taking everything from that.
That's where I'm going with that.
Okay.
So, you know, people look at the state of Africa today, which is just unmitigated disaster, and they say, well, that's because of colonialism. Well,
right.
When colonialism didn't begin until in the interior of Africa until the late 19th century. It wasn't until the late 19th century when there's this big scramble to colonize Africa. And when we arrived...
Wait, do you mean at the beginning of industrialization? You're telling me that an entire continent that wasn't afforded the ability to participate in global industrialization has had like problems developing as nations? Jeez.
They didn't have written language. They didn't have two-story buildings. They didn't have complex society.
Whoa, no written language? You can't find written... My dude, fucking Egypt is in Africa. There was written language thousands of years ago. Jesus.
Other than what the Muslims or the Christians wrote in northern Africa around the sort of west coast, because they didn't have writing. And you know, I don't say that to be ignorant. I don't say that to be funny. I'm not saying that to be a jackass. I'm saying that to mean, you know, this is the state of development of that continent, of that people. And so in a sense, it's almost cruel then that you bring these people over into Europe, you bring Africans into Europe or in America, and then they're underperforming, and it turns into, oh, well, you know, it's the government, it's the programs, it's this or that. It's like, well, the level of development wasn't very high to begin with. And I say that with compassion. I don't say that to be condescending. I say that with compassion. It's unfortunate.
He said you're too stupid to learn how to write black people. That's what he's arguing. That's just what he's arguing. He's just arguing black people are too stupid to write stuff.
Counter argument to that. I'm sure there is one, but I'm not really.
He's not wrong though.
I'm not really sure how to debate that.
What,
You love to just latch on to whatever he says, though.
No, listen.
Flacco
I'm
like
actually
black
African. Listen, I'm actually
people.
African.
Flacco doesn't like black people.
Right? Like I'm actually African, and he's not wrong.
Do you think there's something like inherently fucked up about African people?
No.
Maybe fucked up isn't the words to use here, but
No. Right? Again, if you like take people who are, let's say, uncivilized and bring them here and put, let's say, like an IQ test in front of them, you know, like they probably do poorly on it, right? So, right, again, you know, just by
Right, because the IQ test is not going to be based on like, and is going to be based on modern values. If you took like one of those people from like an indigenous island and had them do like an IQ test, they'd score pretty low on the English part because they don't speak English. That's why the IQ test is bullshit. It's measuring for things that it's already biased in favor of. That's why it's kind of useless.
Some would be behind the 8 ball, right? You know, again, like acknowledging those truths, like don't mean it's like you know, it's currently hatred, right? You know, and like he's telling the truth, right? As somebody who's African, I can tell you, you know, we're currently uncivilized.
But even like the fact that he has such an interest in it is obviously part of his overall platform being
Yeesh.
People are essentially superior to black people, right?
Yeesh.
White people are superior to black people?
Well, yeah, my dude with the tattoos doesn't quite get that Nick Fuentes knows all of this about like Africa or whatever, or knows, let's be honest, most of it's propaganda. But like the only reason he has this many long opinions on it is because you have to have some kind of foundation under like his pretty obvious racism. Like that's all this is. It's just bedrock to build the incredibly racist house he's built on top of it.
Still no. Still no. I don't believe that because I think that,
I don't believe that, even though I think that you guys have not developed and are dumber and are more violent and everything else. But it totally has nothing to do with those
My
things.
favorite album's Life of Pablo.
All right, favorite song of Life of Pablo.
30 Hours or Father Stretch My Hands.
Let me get a verse right
That
now.
is a
Nick.
good album.
I do like Father Stretch My Hands. It's a fun song.
Kanye songs. I know all his albums. I know all the words to it. I have Yeezy in my closet. I have a lot of it because it's expensive, but I'm a fan, and I consider him one of the greatest geniuses alive right now.
Look, man, Nick really likes his black entertainers. He just thinks that's what they should stick to. You know, white people should be deciding the direction of the country. Black people should be entertaining the white people. That's what he thinks.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I grew up on him, and the thing is, you know, it's got nothing to do with interpersonal relationships. I get along with black people, with people of other races.
Okay. We're done. Okay, this is gonna be the last bit of it, but I've lost interest. So I'm glad we finished that. I was kind of debating on whether we actually would, because I wasn't sure how long the Tim Pool stuff would last, but luckily that didn't last as long as I thought it would. He really stormed out of there pretty quick. Anyway, so oh my goodness. Yeah, that's gonna do it for us here on this show today. I encourage you, if you've enjoyed any bit of this, to like the stream. I'm assuming that's something you can do. But more importantly, I encourage you to follow the stream if you can. I'd really appreciate that, so that I can not do the job that I normally do. 36 to 40 hours a week, because I would like to do other things. But yeah, I'm trying to think if I have any other housekeeping. Thursday will be the next show. We'll kind of see what that ends up being, assuming I'm not feeling much worse in terms of being sick, but I'm mostly okay today, so I should be fine. But either way, yeah, I think that's gonna do it for tonight. So anyway, you've been a great audience. I've been just a little bit sick and a little bit more thirsty than I've allowed myself to be. And you have yourself a lovely night, and I'll see you Thursday. Bye-bye.